Portland. California Governor Gavin Newsom used his final State of the State address to highlight his accomplishments while criticizing the Trump administration. As Laura Fitzgerald with Cap Radio reports, the two-term Democratic governor is barred from running again by term limits.
Newsom's address presented California in sharp contrast to the Trump administration.
Mr. President, you can't cut off critical food assistance for millions of people. You can't send the military into American cities without justification. And you cannot cruelly and illegally cut off funding for medical research, homeland security, or disaster response. That is wrong.
Newsom touted a 9% reduction in unsheltered homelessness, an $11 cap for insulin, and higher wages for fast food and healthcare workers. The address was the last of Newsom's tenure as California governor, ahead of the Democrats' widely expected presidential bid in 2028. For NPR News, I'm Laura Fitzgerald in Sacramento.
Legal experts say the prosecution of ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in the U.S. could take years because of complex legal issues. NPR's Carrie Johnson says one question is whether Maduro deserves immunity.
Maduro says he's still president of Venezuela. His lawyer signaled they may challenge the narco-terrorism and cocaine charges by arguing Maduro's entitled to head of state immunity. A court in New York will have to determine whether Maduro can be considered the legitimate leader of the country. But U.S. presidents enjoy a lot of leeway in foreign affairs, including which governments to recognize. Legal scholars say Maduro might have an argument that he deserves immunity for possible official acts in the indictment, such as using the military to organize flights. 2 years ago, the U.S. Supreme Court gave President Trump and future American presidents substantial immunity for their official acts in office. Carrie Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
Maduro and his wife Celia Flores are due back in federal court in March. This is NPR News from Washington.
Good morning from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston. I'm Henry Santoro. Lawmakers in the Massachusetts Senate were back at work yesterday. Political reports one of the items on the docket was advancing legislation that would change how often campaigns have to file reports with the state's Office of Campaign and Political Finance. Another is the bundling of local tax relief bills, a package that's something like a Senate response to Boston Mayor Michelle Wu's tax shift home rule petition. And we are less than 6 months out from the start of World Cup soccer, and state officials say they're making progress on preparations but have new concerns about funding for the event as well as event locations. The State House News Service reports that the Massachusetts legislature continues to hunt for financial support for the event and get a better idea of the security needed from the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. Visitors from around the world are expected to pour into Massachusetts for the FIFA World Cup, which features 7 games at Gillette Stadium between June 13th and July 9th. Meanwhile, 2 of the most iconic teams in the world of soccer will meet in an exhibition match at Gillette on March 26th. The matchup is between Brazil and France, and tickets are on sale this coming Tuesday at 10 a.m. You can find them at roadto26.com. Celtics host the Raptors at the Garden tonight. Sunday night wildcard football, the Patriots host the LA Chargers at Gillette. And tennis fans will be happy to know that the Australian Open, the first of the big majors, starts on Monday. 37 degrees. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Imaginable Futures, envisioning a future where learning sparks opportunity and thriving belongs to everyone. Learn more at imaginablefutures.com. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Eastern Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be joined by the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Andrea Joy Campbell, on the 13th of January. She'll be here from 11 till noon taking your questions and ours. And the Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, will be here January 20th, also at the library from noon to 1. Good morning, Jim.
And much more imminently, at 12:30, the great Patty Larkin is going to sing and talk to us, which I cannot wait for.
That's right.
You know, we got so many thoughtful, important calls yesterday. We figured we'd spend another day at least with you discussing the militarization of immigration and border control agents. The latest Two people, as you know, were shot in Portland, Oregon yesterday. We know virtually nothing about it except the government's tale that, of course, that they're gang members. They're always gang members. They're always domestic terrorists. On the heels of the killing of Reilly in Minneapolis earlier this week, even beyond the violent apprehensions, more people died in ICE custody last year than in the past 2 decades, according to The Guardian. Federal officers have fatally shot at least 3 other people in the last 5 months, according to news reports from the Marshall Project. And in the last 4 months, according to The Times, federal officers have fired on at least 9 people who were in their cars, like Reilly Good's case. The agent who shot Good was a veteran of immigration enforcement agencies, spent 10 years with ICE, served with the National Guard as a gunner in Iraq. He was injured when dragged by a vehicle during an attempted immigration action last year, also in Minnesota. So a number of questions at 877-301-8970 for calling or texting. What do we do about this growing violence and the culture that spawns it? A flashpoint in 2020 when the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor sparked nationwide protests. We may be seeing the start of a similar mobilization now. You saw it in Minneapolis last night. I encountered it in downtown Boston early in the evening, but in a very different national climate as Trump seeks to crack down on dissent, in some cases permanently. The number is 877-301-8970. What was your reaction once you had time to step back from all this last night?
Well, I think it's really scary for people that are living in these towns, and I think it's particularly scary if you're a person of color or somebody that speaks Spanish. And I think it's a horrible situation for people who've been in this country for 15 or 20 years, who are afraid they're going to be deported. I still keep thinking of that 19-year-old student from Babson College who came to the country when she was a little girl, was what we used to call one of the dreamers. We seem to have forgotten about the dreamers. They were the people that were brought here by their parents and had nothing to do with coming over the border illegally, which, by the way, is a civil infraction, not a criminal infraction. But she's now in Honduras. She was going home to visit her family in Texas at Thanksgiving, plucked by ICE, sent back to Honduras. I just... The idea
Reilly
that
Good
we're going
was
to go
none of those things.
She was
Reilly
none of
Good
those
was a
things.
white woman.
She was
a citizen of this country.
And the thing is, I think a lot of us thought that things may have gotten out of control at the border. A lot of Americans voted for Trump to shut down the border. He has shut down the border. He said he was going to go after bad hombres, the rapists and the killers and the murderers. And as we know now, 70% of the people he's gone after and deported had no infraction other than coming across the border civilly, against the civil law.
You know, since we were here, we had a conversation yesterday with Andrew Cabral about if the facts merit it, can this agent be prosecuted by the state? Obviously, would never be prosecuted by the feds. Immediately after we had that conversation, we learned the FBI has taken over the investigation, which means 2 things. The state can't do its own investigation because it doesn't have access to the evidence. And 2, we know what the outcome is going to be, because 3 very high-profile people have already decided the outcome. She viciously, Reilly Good, ran over the officer, according to the President of the United States. She's a domestic terrorist, according to the head of Homeland Security. And it was a tragedy of her own making. Vice President Vance said yesterday, another incredibly cruel and not to mention factually inaccurate statement. You know, the person who said it, touching on something you said, to read Michelle Goldberg's column in the New York Times.
Yeah, she had a great column.
Here's the last line. All of us, citizens and immigrants alike, are being ruled by people who think life is a privilege bestowed by authority and death is a fair penalty for disobedience. I mean, and you sit back and then you say, that's true. That is really... It's true, and it's horrifying, and I'm really glad that people are speaking out. I was thrilled last night. I was having a drink with a friend, and as I was leaving downtown, there were a ton of people who decided this is important enough to come out at night, and let's hope many more people do that. 877-301-8970 is the number.
You got to contrast this with situations where police officers take out their guns and shoot someone. There are always these big investigations, and they could be shooting somebody who had a weapon, who had a knife, who had a gun, who did something quite bizarre and put other people at risk, and there's a big investigation every time a police officer takes his gun out. And we've gotten away from shooting. I mean, for my money, this guy shouldn't have shot at all. You don't shoot. 2 of those 3 shots were from the side when Ms. Good had turned to wheels and turned away from him. You just let them go. They had her license number. She hadn't committed any crimes as far as anybody knew. Just let them go. And if you want to go arrest her or talk to her later, then you go arrest her and talk to her later.
Well, also, what kind of investigation can you possibly have when, again, the president, the vice president, the secretary of Homeland Security have already issued their verdict based upon nothing, by the way. Maybe it turns out this was a closer case and they might have been proven right, based upon nothing. And they send out the vice president yesterday, because obviously we needed somebody to reaffirm the blind position being taken by the administration. But, in addition to everything else, it is so incredibly crass and unkind when a woman has lost her life in these kinds of circumstances. The other thing that was made, the domestic terrorism thing, we'll get to your calls in a second, 877-301-8970. Some video analyst who testifies in trials is an expert witness, who was on with Anderson Cooper last night, and he mentioned in terms of the environment, well, he did say that the car bumped the cop, and you can see that in a slow motion from a different angle, but obviously he wasn't injured, I should say, and question is, why was he standing where he was standing too? Right before she moved, she waved another car. This is not a woman hell-bent on hurting anybody. She was trying to drive away.
She waved another ICE car through.
I know that.
Yeah.
Another cop last night made a wonderful point about, because a lot of the people have been criticizing the training of these ICE people. I hadn't even thought of this. After, the video that all of us have seen where the doctor is offering his services and it's being turned down? Trucks and cars, they hadn't secured the scene. The woman is sitting dead in her car. How many minutes till the medics came? 7 minutes, even though there was a doctor across the street offering his help. Cars are going by, trucks are going by. People, they clearly are not trained for this kind of thing, and a woman is dead. We have no idea what happened in Oregon. All we know, again, is they're, of course, gang members. Maybe they are, but that's sort of like the default. If we shoot somebody, they're a domestic terrorist or they're a gang member. That is by definition.
And one thing I should just say, to listen to the politicians and a lot of officials in Minnesota saying that they don't have any trust in what the Department of Justice or the FBI come to
They've ruled already. The President of the United States has made a determination.
So that's kind of a sad state of affairs, that there's not any trust from local and state officials in what the federal government will do.
877-301-8970. Marie in Shrewsbury, you're first. Thanks for calling. Hi.
Hi, good morning.
You too.
First of all, thank you to you two for doing such good job covering all of this.
Well, thank you.
You guys are honest, upfront, factual, careful, and I appreciate it. You're keeping me sane.
Thanks.
But, I don't have answers, but we have to stop the militarization of law enforcement in this country. I mean, we have tanks and people looking like they're going into battle on our streets.
It's totally true.
And they're treating our citizens like we're the enemy. My son was on did a nonviolent training, is in nonviolent work, did a neighborhood watch for ICE in the Boston area, and they showed up, and he got hit by an ICE truck that was pulling out of a crowd and knocked him off his feet.
Wow.
Luckily, not hurt, yeah. But this is happening all the time. And people do not realize this. These people are dangerous. They're not protecting anybody. I don't know what the answer is, except that we have to keep pounding the truth.
Hey,
the media has to keep pounding the truth.
Well, also, I'd say more important than that is that people, real people, ordinary people like your son, decide to sit up and do something. Why do you decide to do that?
He's been in nonviolent. He's been in nonviolent work. He does work all over the world, and he's been to Gaza.
Oh my goodness.
He did it because innocent people, vulnerable populations need protection.
Well, Marie, I must say you're probably pretty proud, and I'm glad he's doing it. I'm glad you called. Thanks so much.
Talking about looking like they're going into war zones, you saw the picture of Gregory Bovino, if that's how you say his name. He's the Border Patrol chief who seems to be, Holman seems to have disappeared. Bovino,
that's a very good point.
Yeah,
Where
I don't
been?
know. Well, maybe they got mad at him about the issue with whether he took a $50,000 bribe and put it in his pocket. But anyway, Bovino, somebody took a picture and said, it looks like he's going into Fallujah. They're dressed up like like they're, over there in Iraq. But at least he didn't have a mask on. Everybody else has got masks on. The guy that runs the show, I guess he feels he couldn't be running around with a mask on, but he did look like otherwise he was dressed.
That alone, the mask, I know we've talked about this a lot. There's not a day that I see video like this, even when there hasn't been the horrible outcome, as Marie said, is just their presence in our communities. It's outrageous. I mean, it is, and I know this has been said by 1,000 people, so I'll make it 1,001. Law enforcement people who've been doing their dangerous jobs with great risk of retaliation forever. Cops, FBI agents, all other, and ICE people in the past, they didn't wear masks.
No.
Why don't the cops in Boston have to wear masks if there's such fear of retaliation? They could have retaliation against them.
Well, remember Bill Evans talked about, he used to be the former chief of police in Boston, or I thought he was a great chief of police.
So did I.
And he talked about how he didn't like the idea of cops going out in riot gear with their faces covered. He wanted them to be seen. And I remember coming out of actually under Tom Menino, you did see that when he came out of the convention. Remember when the convention was here in Boston? Coming out of the convention and seeing like 100 cops, Boston cops, with their riot gear on, like they were ready to be astronauts shot into space.
And what happened as a result? There was nobody downtown.
There was nobody downtown.
No customers for businesses. Nobody.
Yeah, and I mean, you hear about that same sort of thing now, where people are afraid to come out because they see ICE on the street. 877-301-8970. Bob from Oklahoma. Thank you for calling.
Hello, Bob.
Hello. Well, I guess I'm struggling with the point that the shots, my understanding, came through the windshield. And if it came through the windshield, it seems like the officer was in front of the vehicle. And to Marjorie's point that they could have just let her go, well, she's taking a lethal weapon and driving towards a person, the officer in this case. I don't see when a lethal weapon is being used to hurt somebody, they should be let go.
First of all, she didn't drive into the front left of her car. If you saw the slow motion video, which I'm sure you have, Bob, from that guy I mentioned who's a video expert who testifies, the front left behind the light did bump into the cop, and he moved back. There was no damage, and at that point, she was driving away. And again, that followed her in the middle of the road waving other law enforcement people by. There was no indication that she was a threat to anybody, Bob.
Well, the thing is, Bob, it was lethal force. He killed her. I mean, you probably are aware that cops have changed their perspective. We used to have these police chases, and what would happen is pedestrians would get killed in the police chases, or some cars would get ran in police chases, and they reformed the idea of police chases. I mean, if there's some situation where a person is running away with someone, it has a passenger there that they're about to kill or something, that might be a different story. But the police thinking now is that these firing at cars
point blank
is so dangerous to everybody that the preferred option is to let them go and get them later or find them later or something like that. She hadn't really done anything except sat in her car in front of them. And by the way, as you know from the pictures, cars could get around her.
But Bob,
that was her worst kind of thing, is parking her car sideways in the street, and for that.
But go ahead, Bob.
No, Jim just said she hit somebody with her car. She
did bump into she did, and he moved back, as you saw, about a foot or two, and as we learned, he was perfectly fine. And but he then shoots her in the head, Bob. Is that the appropriate? Let's assume you're right, that they shouldn't have let her go, tracked her license plate, gone to her house, arrested her if she was arrestable. Was shooting her in the head the appropriate response to what she did, even by your definition?
At what point, if you're being struck by a vehicle, do you think that they're not going to keep hitting you?
Well, here's the thing.
Because she had driven by him after that.
The second and third shot, Bob, was taken from the side. So she had already gone by.
The first shot was not.
Yeah,
right?
and if you look at what they're saying now about ICE training or cop training, they're not supposed to get in front of the cars. Before he was in front of the car, where he shouldn't have been, especially since he'd been dragged by a car before, another agent came up and started screaming at her to get out of the car. He's holding onto the door. I think you have to give benefit of the doubt a little bit to her being afraid.
Hey, Bob,
and his not following his training, which was not to be in front of a car.
Bob, last question for you. You heard the caller before you mention her son was on a neighborhood watch was hit by an ICE agent. Should the son, if he was armed, have shot the ICE agent in the head?
I didn't hear the previous.
Well, that's what she described. Her son was hit by an ICE agent. Similar to what you're describing here, should he have shot the ICE agent in the head?
If he was acting lawfully, I think he has a complaint. I don't know.
Okay,
but
Bob, thanks.
We
appreciate your call. Thank you. 877-301-8970 is the number. You know, let me just say this. Since people have a different definition of explanation of what they saw on the video, and let's give Bob his point. There are a lot of people like Bob who believe that. Then the question that's got to flow is: was shooting her in the head the appropriate remedy on the part of the ICE agent?
Well, I think the question that's going to flow is there should be a local investigation like there is when there are police officers in municipalities involved in shootings. Well, that's another big problem. This is being taken away from the people in Minnesota. They want to do an investigation. The FBI is saying they're not going to cooperate. And it's just incredible when you think about it. The guy that's running the FBI now is in trouble for spending all this taxpayer money to fly off to visit his girlfriend and go to these wrestling matches or wherever they go. I mean, do people have a lot of faith in Kash Patel? I mean, you look at Kash Patel at these press conferences, and he looks a little odd to me.
Aaron, you're at the library. Hi, Aaron. How are you?
Hi. Good morning.
Hey.
I want to look at this. I want to look at this whole thing through the lens of cowardice. Everything that these people do shows how afraid they are of the rest of the people in America. They throw people to the ground because they're afraid to face them. They throw tear gas because they're afraid that there are too many people there opposing them. Even Donald Trump, who's creating these spheres of influence, is a total coward because he's afraid to face Putin and China, and so he wants to retreat to an area where he can deal with the weakest possible country. So how do we deal with this? I've called several times, and I've urged the largest possible demonstrations. That's still my point of view. I think also that a general strike would be lovely. Even for a short period of time. The whole point is to demonstrate as much as possible the largest number of people in opposition to them because they will be intimidated by a great show of even peaceful force.
I'm with you. I'm with you, Aaron. I know I'm with you. The largest number of people can show their gross dissatisfaction with the direction this country is taking, the better. I hope it happens. I hope we can help make it happen, and you sure as hell are. Aaron, thank you for your call. 877-301-8970 is the number.
Chin from Lexington.
Hey, Chin.
Hi. The debate over whether the shooting was legal is not going to move anything forward or convince anybody. The important point is that these trigger-happy, half-trained, jackbooted not in there in the first place.
It's a very good point.
Anybody, yes. When you put that kind of armed force in urban centers, good Americans are going to die. That can be anticipated, and therefore the president, because that's where the buck stops, is responsible.
Chin, that was an excellent call. I'm cutting off only because the connection's bad. And if you didn't hear it, he said they shouldn't have been there to begin with. 2,000 agents, 2,000 federal agents sent to Minneapolis. And by the way, this all built on this racism around the Somalis there. And I'll repeat what Mayor Fry said. And by the way, Mayor Fry predicted exactly what Chin said weeks ago, said when they send all these people in, there's going to be horrible violence here. This all started with the Somalis and the racism of the president directed the Somalis and his ignoring the fact that the vast majority of Somalis in this large diaspora there are citizens of the United States, which obviously runs counter to the narrative he wants to advance and what was just predicted by Chin and by Fry is exactly what happened, and there'll be more.
You know what's funny? I've often talked about how the president lies, and that he had this big interview with the New York Times reporters yesterday. He lied about a lot of things, but one of the things he insisted on, even after they showed the video over and over in the Oval Office, that she ran him over. She ran him over. She ran him over.
Viciously ran him over.
And obviously she didn't run him over because he was, walked away from the situation without injury. He did go to the hospital, but it certainly wasn't for a visible physical injury to his legs or his arms or his body, because he looked fine when he walked away from the car. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break, and then more of your calls and texts next, 877-301-8970. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. This is BPR and GBH and NEPM, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
President Trump is making noise about the U.S. acquiring Greenland. European leaders are asking themselves what this means for NATO and how they should respond to a potential threat from their most powerful ally.
If Europe is not able to stop the U.S., then who is? And what kind of signal does this send to other parts of the world?
Hear that story next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And MIT Sloan Executive Education, helping professionals stay competitive with 2 to 3 day courses on AI essentials, strategic leadership, and more. Details at executive.mit.edu.
And the Cape Cod Foundation, committed to building resources to support community life on Cape Cod, including environmental conservation, arts and culture, and community development. Learn more at capecodfoundation.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. If you're just tuning in, the lines are open to get more of your reaction to the militarization of immigration enforcement in America. I assume you all know this, but ICE's budget now is comparable to the entire militaries of sovereign nations, and get this, is larger than the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, U.S. Marshals, and the U.S. Bureau of Prisons combined. 877-301-8970. By the way, I just looked up the latest. There's still not much information on these shootings in Oregon. The Department of Homeland Security has now named the two people. They described them as undocumented immigrants. Well, I'm sure they didn't say undocumented immigrants, but that's what they are, allegedly, with ties to the Venezuelan gang that they mentioned yesterday. Nothing has come from people whom you can trust. So that's the latest.
Well, the other thing is, it's so disheartening. Maybe they are tied to this gang.
I don't know.
They might be. But, they said all these people that they shipped off to Venezuela, to that horrible prison in El Salvador were tied to that gang, and they weren't. And so you can't believe what they say anymore, which is one of the disheartening things. Not that the DOJ hasn't made mistakes before, not that the federal government hasn't made mistakes before, but this is like on a scale that is just through the roof. Everybody just says they're in a gang, or they're murderers and rapists, and they're not murderers and rapists, and it doesn't seem to matter.
What they also said, the feds have also said they, quote, weaponized his vehicle, meaning the driver, one of those two guys. And again, this is the same federal government where the president said yesterday that the ICE agent was viciously run over by Renee Good, which obviously, regardless of our difference of factual perception, is obviously not true. Nick in the car, hi.
Hey, Jim and Marjorie.
Hi.
Big fan of you guys. I've been listening to you for a long time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kind of grew up listening to you with my mom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to kind of say that I feel like this is very obviously what they're pushing for, is trying to get people agitated so that this administration can kind of use violent force, I think. And it's really showing with them talking about the fear of losing the midterms, that they're all going to end up in jail. Like, this is clearly agitation to try to make a power move. And I think we need to be very careful about how we protest, obviously I feel like we need to, but we just need to be careful.
Nick, that's a wonderful call. And we got a lot of texts yesterday. A caller mentioned that we should meet the government's violence, with which we obviously disagree, and I think virtually all of our listeners did too. But Nick's point is a continuation of that. They're going to do what they do regardless, but don't make it easier for them to commit violence against protesters by being violent ourselves. Nick, you were totally right in everything you said, and thanks for your call. We appreciate it.
877-301-8970 is the number. A lot of people talk about a lot of texters are referring to the people that are protesting and haven't. We had some of them on the other day that have been protesting regularly outside the Burlington ICE facility. There should be more protests.
Domestic terrorists, those three people.
Yeah.
They are. They wanted to bring food and menstrual supplies to the people in that Burlington ICE facility.
When you step back and you think about it, I mean, this is just so bizarre in the United States of America that people are worried, whether they're United States citizens, whether they're people of color, whether they're immigrants or not, are so worried about this military force with guns moving into their neighborhoods and nabbing people off the streets.
I'm so glad you said that.
It's kind of
totally
like 1984. Remember that book in 1984, the propaganda was winning toward the end and you were supposed to not believe what your eyes told you. It's kind of the same thing that's going on. Now, again, that Trump interview yesterday has 4 reports of the New York Times in there, and he just keeps lying about stuff. He solved 8 wars. He hasn't solved 8 wars. I mean, over and over and over again, that's been debunked. He says she viciously ran him over. He just keeps lying, and Noam keeps lying, and Vance keeps lying, and convinces millions of Americans that it's true. What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing only because we're going to do this later in the show. I'll just mention it briefly now. If people didn't read it, apparently Trump is going to meet with the opposition leader who won the Nobel Peace Prize, who he said was not respected by the people of Venezuela, so he's going to be the leader. And apparently, and I thought this, when I woke up to it, I thought it was satire. Apparently, she's going to surrender the Nobel Peace Prize to him because he is the rightful owner, and he says it'd be a great honor if he were to get it secondhand. He didn't say secondhand.
Reported, and they just said it was according to sources.
Yeah.
They were anonymous sources, so we don't have this ABC all lined up and T's crossed. But anonymous sources said that she would be the president of Venezuela right now if she'd not won the Nobel Prize. You just can't.
If she had rejected it and said that Trump should have been the winner.
That's right. They really put him over the top. That and Maduro's dancing and mocking the presidency.
Can I give, Machado doesn't need any advice from me, but can I give her a little advice? Not only would I give him the Nobel Peace Prize, I'd put it in gold wrapping. I think if you put it in gold wrapping, you are the next president of Venezuela. Judy in Newburyport, hey.
Hi. First time, long time.
Thanks.
I think what the administration is doing is creating an environment of fear for immigrants, for residents, for citizens. And it's very carefully calculated ahead of the 2026 elections. This environment of fear is meant to prevent people from exercising their right to vote. And this administration will go as far as it can. It's shown it has no respect for legality, for laws, for the court. So this is all about the 2026 elections. And I think we should all go out and be present peacefully and protest.
Hey, Judy, you know whose tune you're singing? Marjorie Egan's.
Yeah,
and as you said that, you know what they're going to say? I think you were spot on. They're going to say millions of illegal immigrants, as they call them, or illegal criminal aliens, or whatever they call them, voted in the last election, which of course they did not, and that's why they've got to send ICE agents to the polling places to protect us from these horrible people. Judy, sadly, I think you are right.
Here's a good one. I am so sick and tired of the excuse that law enforcement officers had to shoot an unarmed person because they felt their life was threatened. If that's the case, why didn't police officers fire at the MAGA rioters who were hitting them with clubs and metal poles?
Very good point.
And the Capitol riot. Oh, I forgot. It was just a normal tourist visit. Seriously, has anyone ever investigated what the rules of engagement were during the Capitol riots? That is a great point. All those cops from the Capitol Police and the D.C. Police, they didn't shoot shoot at anybody. Anyway, we are moving on to Press Play. We're going to be joined by GBH's Adam Reilly and Yawu Miller from the Flipside, talking about how the press is covering this and other issues. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, how a winter sport, that's one way to put it, became the hottest thing on TV. In heated rivalry, two elite hockey players are enemies on the ice, but sparks fly long after the final buzzer. We'll look at how this love story is breaking every rule in the game. Plus, we turn up the volume on BTS. After a long hiatus, the global supergroup reunites, ending the countdown for fans around the world. We take on that and more on our Arts and Culture Week in Review, today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Boston Ski and Tennis, helping families stay active and outdoors this winter, offering a range of winter sport products and services with locations in Newton and Westboro or online at bostonskiandtennis.com. And American Repertory Theater with Wonder, a new musical for the whole family based on the best-selling book and beloved movie. The Wall Street Journal calls it heartfelt and uplifting. Tickets at amrep.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The Attorney General joins us here at the library on January 13th. The mayor joins us at the library on the 20th. And by the way, I know we're depressing people as we do every day. The next hour, Andy Borowitz is going to be with us.
Right.
Patty Larkin's going to sing. Edgar B. Herrick III is going to preview his new show. So stick around. You wanted to say something?
Well, I should say, I said before that nobody was shot in the Capitol riots, but Ashley Babbitt, of course, was she was trying to climb through a window besides a barricaded door to the Speaker's lobby, and she was told multiple times not to proceed, and she did, and she was shot in the shoulder. So there was definitely, and she was killed. So there was somebody that shot. I should have said that before.
In any case, it is now time for our weekly media analysis segment, Press Play. We're joined at the BPL desk by GBH politics reporter Adam Reilly. Hey, Adam, how are you?
Hey, good.
Nice to see you. Also with us is Yawu Miller, editor-in-chief of the nonprofit news service, The Flipside, flipsidenews.net. Yawu, good to see you, too. Thanks for being here.
You know what I wanted to ask? I'll start with my colleague here, Adam. We're really loath to use the word lie in the media when we talk about, misstatements or exaggerations or erroneous.
Claimed erroneously.
Yeah, yeah. Why don't we just say Trump lied, Vance lied, Noam lied?
Give me a test example, and I'll see if I can tell you why we would use it or not.
Well, we were talking about lying about the COVID vaccine the other day and differentiating between people made a lot of mistakes about the COVID vaccine in terms of actually lying because they knew that something they said was wrong. So I would say Trump claiming over and over again that he solved 8 wars. He's lying.
I think it is entirely appropriate to use the term lie because he should be able to count on his hands how many wars he's solved. He knows how many wars he's solved.
Or maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he doesn't.
And that's the big question, right? Is whether he actually believes what if you are repeating something that is not true.
Okay, I won the election.
Yeah,
does he believe that, or is he lying?
Well, see, that's the issue: is intent.
Yeah.
When it comes to lie,
and I kind of think he genuinely does believe.
I do.
He's
well,
been
I mean,
elected 3 times.
Yawu, do you want to weigh in on this thing?
I think, it's hard to say when somebody's a compulsive liar, which Trump is, that, do they, as not being a compulsive liar myself, I don't know, do they actually convince themselves of something and then assert it as if it's truth, believing that it is? I think you have to push intent aside and just say it's a lie.
Well, let me give you another example.
That's the way you could do it, actually. You could say, this is what he said, that is a lie, and then it wouldn't. Well, maybe it would give you the same problem.
So when Kristi Noem, who no one is accused of being gone, they may accuse her of being wildly unprepared and incompetent, when she did the domestic terrorism thing, when she had absolutely no evidence that was the case and couldn't, when she was asked, what's the evidence for that, she couldn't back it up. I would say it's okay to say that that's a lie, no?
I think it's tough to use the term lie that early in a situation. By the way, I was driving over here to your take on the killing of Renee Good, and I totally agree with pretty much everything you two have been saying. But I think it's so early that if she advances what is a highly questionable claim, doesn't seem to be true at all, but it has just come out of the gates doing it, I think you need to wait a little bit. Maybe wait a week, wait 2 weeks. That's my own sense. Maybe I'm overly cautious.
You're a fair person. The issue, I think, I'm not sure we should have chosen the whole lie versus erroneously stated thing. It's the Margaret Sullivan point is a much better point than the point you and I are making. The Margaret Sullivan point, which is made repeatedly, is you describe something exactly as it is, like the infamous address he gave wherever it was, at West Point or Notre Dame, or where it was, the New York Times thing gives rambling speech. And that British paper called it exactly what it was. The lunatic thing with the details. No, I'm serious. No, not the thing the other day. In the headline, you can't pull punches is the bottom line. As long as it's fair and it's objective, you got to call them what they are. Let's move on. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. This is incredible to me. As of the moment, it is the only newspaper in the 28th largest city in America. And as of May 3rd, I think, they're not just going digital, they're going dark, meaning they are totally done. Unless something rises to fill that hole, there is no major paper of record in the 28th largest city in America. What's your reaction to that, Yawu?
I mean, I think that there was infighting in the family that absolutely led to that. It's a large family that owns it, and there are different factions in that family. So it was probably difficult for the community to rally around the paper and save it. That said, it's going to leave a big hole. But what we've seen around the country in major cities and even cities like New Bedford is when there's a vacuum, that people will fill it. That the business community, the philanthropic community in Pittsburgh, and there is a robust philanthropic community there. Right, they will rally around it. It might take a couple of years, but it could be a nonprofit news organization,
like the New Bedford Light.
Exactly.
We'll give them a plug.
Yeah, and the Plymouth Independent. That in communities where there's a news vacuum, it's much easier to fill that, and that the local community will rally around any efforts to create a newspaper, because people in the United States still value their local news.
Doesn't the Plymouth Independent have two of the best investigative reporters from the Globe? Walter Robinson, Pulitzer Prize winner, Andrea Estes, great reporter from the Globe.
However, and we've had people on from the New Bedford Light and the Plymouth Independent. I think even they do brilliant work. I mean, brilliant work. They're little bitty enterprises that are struggling in wonderful ways. They don't have the ability of a major newspaper. The example I'd pick, Brian McGrory, the former and current editor of the Globe, when he was in between at the journalism school at BU, was a consultant to a billionaire in Baltimore who created the Baltimore Banner when the Baltimore Sun started declining in its relevance and importance. But that's a pretty thin read to hope you're going to
Didn't they win a Pulitzer?
They did win a Pulitzer, this most recent.
So it was an impressive thin read.
Are you as optimistic that the hole will be filled?
It's the as Yawu put it, the robustness of the philanthropic community in Pittsburgh that makes me think that someone's going to step in.
And the business
It seems
community.
like the dysfunction in this family that owned the Post-Gazette seems, many families are dysfunctional, but this one seems to have been extra dysfunctional, and that may have dissuaded people from coming in trying to support the paper earlier on. I just want to mention, remember when the New York Times threatened to close down the Globe? It's sort of crazy to think.
That's right.
When it owned the Globe, for those who don't recall.
When they owned the Globe and said that they just, were not making enough money, they actually threatened it with closure. So we came really, really close in this metro area, which, I remember hearing about that because I was covering media at the Boston Phoenix at the time. And someone told me that, a source told me that they'd been threatened with closure by the Times. And I thought, that can't be right. But it was.
Yeah, the poor Times, they paid a fortune for the Globe and just watched its value
diminish.
Yep. Yeah, they did. Okay, let's talk about Mondami, the new mayor of New York City. He had this press availability, but it wasn't for everybody. It was for these influencers, the so-called influencer summit, and the traditional media was not invited. Should we be outraged?
I guess as somebody who gets news through social media as well as through the more traditional channels, I think it's an interesting approach, and we've I think when we've seen it at the White House press corps, where non-traditional news outlets in quotes are there with more respectable news outlets, it's worrying. I guess. It's early in his administration. It'll be interesting to see how he handles the more traditional news outlets.
But the difference, Yawu, is for example, while at the White House they have Mr. Pillow, his television.
Is it Pentagon?
The Pentagon's a whole different story.
Yep.
The Pentagon, there are no traditional mainstream media. But at a White House event, at the same time that there are the nuts, like Mr. Pillow's people, I know that's not a term of art, but you know what I mean. They're also they're real journalists. Mamdani didn't invite he barred the mainstream media from this. He allowed the New York Times to see it, but not participate in it. I mean, I don't want to make he is new. What?
According to the write-up in the Times, and I hadn't realized this, both Trump and Biden did something similar. Invited influencers to come in
and
exclusively.
Excluded? Well, how do you feel about it? I don't care who does it. How do you feel about it?
On the one hand, it drives me nuts. There's a quote that I want to read from one of the influencers. As the Times put it, tongue-in-cheek, the proceedings at City Hall were not exactly adversarial. In the past 6 months, I have had so much fun making content for you. Layla Tarimi, a food and beauty influencer who was called on to ask the first question, told the mayor. When I hear about someone like that being invited and traditional media being excluded, I don't like it. But on the other hand, that Times write-up said the 78 people who were invited reach a total of 82 million people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
But as you said, there were people like food and beauty writers and fitness instructors and kind of lifestyle people. That's why it really didn't bother me that much, because it wasn't really a serious news conference about, childcare or the buses or the grocery stores. It was kind of like a
branding exercise, right?
Or I think it was also that he thought those people helped him a lot to get elected.
That too.
Well, it's another vehicle to communicate to people who are not going to choose the mainstream press. I have to say, I'm troubled by it, and I know while I'm troubled by it that I shouldn't be. I mean, is that not where it sounds like where you're falling?
I'm a little troubled by it. I understand why he did it, but the inanity of some of what people had to say is kind of disheartening.
Can we bring it home here? I'm trying to get to the bottom of this in my own head. What if Wu did it? Wu was just sworn in for the second time. What if Wu decided tomorrow to bring it much more close and personal? She decided to do a similar thing. What would our reaction be, do you think?
I think we'd all be livid.
I think if you do that alongside traditional press, she does go on podcasts, and some of the podcasts are just pitching softball question after softball question, and sometimes they get an exclusive. But as long as the traditional news media, the respectable journalism is not being pushed out, then
this doesn't really bother. I mean, a food writer is going to have a sit down with the mayor. A fitness instructor is going to talk about how many push-ups you should do or something.
But it wasn't an individual one-on-one to discuss strawberry shortcake. Or discuss
they were talking about strawberry shortcake. There were no serious discussions.
There were dozens of reporters.
Yeah, what were they talking about?
Or whatever they were, influencers.
I think they were talking about the mayor's suits and maybe what he could do for his workout routine and how white his teeth were, stuff like that. That was my.
Well, those are your kind of interests. So
those are my kind of interests.
You felt totally well represented.
That's right.
Exactly. We're talking to Yawu Miller and Adam Reilly. Speaking of a much more serious situation, since it's pretty clear we should never have brought that one up, let's talk about the situation in the Pentagon. Everybody knows what happened. The Pentagon under Secretary, he loves to call himself Hegseth, said, here are the rules for covering us. You got to run stuff by us before you print it. And to the credit of responsible news outlets, including Fox News, say we're not going to agree to this. All of them are out. And essentially, this is where the Mr. Pillows of the world have exclusive direct access to the Pentagon. And the whole issue, particularly, it rose to a higher level, obviously, after these killings in, talk about backburnered, the killings of those two men on the, holding on to the ship, and obviously what happened in Venezuela. And there's a whole debate going on in the media if it turns out the responsible mainstream media made the right decision because they don't have the same level of access. As a consumer, I have to say, I feel I'm getting really high quality reporting on what's going on in the Pentagon. And I love the fact that they took a principled position and said, we're not going to play your game and have you censor or veto whatever you don't like. What's your take on what's going on at the Pentagon, Yawu?
Yeah, I mean, as a news consumer, I'm not noticing a big difference in the information I'm getting, and also, as somebody who consumes social media, I'm like, what we saw, for instance, in Venezuela, you're seeing like people's social media feeds showing live footage, and then you're getting the official description of what happened. Something similar happened in Panama, where there was a local journalist named Andrew Jones who was outside of the press pool, got footage of the invasion of Panama, where Noriega was taken out of power, and he was the only, because he wasn't in the pool, he was the only journalist who actually got footage of what was happening on the ground. So sometimes going outside of the official channels is better.
Yeah, I agree with that. By the way, one of the great lines from the sort of sycophantic press that is allowed in, this one guy, when he's talking about what happened in Venezuela, here's the lead line of his reporting. I voted so hard for this. Was his... That's good, objective.
There are a couple good lines, too, from your favorite, as you put it, the Mr. Pillow Network, the Mike Lindell
He's running for
TV.
governor of something. Where is he? Minnesota?
He's from Minnesota.
Yeah, I think he's running for governor.
He's run for governor before.
Yeah. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. Just one of his correspondent, Ms. Mullins, Heather Mullins, said when Pete Hegseth mentioned Jesus in a speech, she wrote on X, can we just take a minute to appreciate the fact that we have a Secretary of War that thinks of Jesus in the middle of his speech to American shipbuilders? Christ is king. So that's the sort of tenor. She also suggested...
It's actually exactly how I felt when I heard him say it.
She also suggested that the U.S. do to Minneapolis what it did to Venezuela.
I missed that.
Which I mean, it's like... It's brutal, but given what just happened with Renee Good, the most interesting thing about this story, about the soft touch that the remade press corps has been giving Hegseth, is this statement from his spokesperson, Kingsley Wilson. She said, "We want to make sure we have the absolute best people on board and willing to serve our commander-in-chief." And that's the premise.
Serve.
That's how she described the media.
Yeah.
That's how she described the media.
That's right.
We want the best people to serve our commander-in-chief. That's
they are.
the model.
They're serving him beautifully, I should say.
But again, just step back a second. How crazy is this? I mean, sometimes I just think everything happens so fast, and it's one thing after another, and when you step back, you think, serve the commander-in-chief? I mean, who in a million years would ever think that would be the state of the media in the Pentagon?
Yeah, we've come a long way.
We've come
in a relatively short period of time.
We've come a long way. So what does it mean? The government, Trump doesn't like public media. Obviously, Congress took away funding. funding.
Talk about euphemisms.
Now the Corporation for Public Broadcasting is no more. What does this mean, Adam?
Well, it's terrible for us at WGBH. It's terrible for member stations, NPR and PBS affiliates around the country. So much money that's circulated through that system originated with the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which was appropriated and allocated by Congress. It means a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. I think it means programming is going to be cut. The extent of stations, the number of stations that are affiliated formally with PBS and NPR is probably going to drop as stations try to stay alive. So it's kind of a debacle. I mean, we knew it was coming, right? This is just sort of what we knew was coming for a few months has become formalized.
Yeah, but I have to say, I don't understand this story as well as I should. The issue, by the way, is not the defunding, for those who are listening. It's the dissolution of the corporate. They formally dissolved. They voted to dissolve themselves the other day. And I have to say, reading this story maybe 10 days after reading the profile in the New York Times of the woman I've never met, who's the head of NPR, Catherine Marr, who, at least as she's portrayed, is a real fighter. Reading this story in that context, I felt like dissolving this thing was sort of capitulation. And maybe that's not fair, and you probably know much more about it than I, but why not stay in existence? And why not say we're going to remain here, and when a sane person who cares about freedom of the press and democracy returns to leadership, this will be the vehicle yet again to fund important information in the public.
This is only a hunch, but where's the money going to come from? I mean, if they've got...
For right now?
Yeah, for right now.
Then do a skeletal staff and raise... I assume
Keep
they raise...
sort of a storefront
I assume they
office
raise
open.
some private money, and if they don't, I'm sure they could raise some private money to keep it... But show a little resistance rather than saying, you screwed us, and we're going to allow ourselves to be doubly screwed by voting ourselves out of existence. At least that...
That's a good argument.
Well, thank you for that.
Making a principled show of resistance.
What do you think about that, Yawu? You're the non-public media person in this grouping here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the funding issue, what Trump and the Republicans are doing right now is, starving government to the point where the things in government are ceasing to work well, and then people lose faith in these things. I just wonder where the money, how long would it take to restore federal funding to a point where this could be adequately funded?
Well, as soon as Trump's done his third term, we'd be able to do that. Don't you think? I think at minimum that would be...
It's a lot easier to cut things from the budget. It's a lot easier to cut taxes than it is to raise revenue, to do things that are going to raise revenue. It'll take a lot... I think it'll take a lot longer to rebuild the revenue to the point where such things
Of course. Yeah. Can we just end where... I don't know if we discussed this with you before. We only have a minute left. I don't know if we've talked to you about this Catherine Maher thing. I know nothing about her, except she's a relatively new head of NPR. Didn't have this kind of media experience.
And she's pregnant.
Which has nothing to do with anything.
That interested me tremendously.
Well, because of the photo. It was a weird photo in that dress. But in any case, I love that spirit. I mean, we are surrounded by so much capitulation and weakness and bowing down to people. Assuming it was an accurate portrayal, it made me feel good.
Anytime you see an island of that, like you mentioned Fox News walking out of the Pentagon, turning in their credentials.
Loved it.
Yeah, I agree. Anytime you see a little island of that, it is stirring.
And inspires other people, I hope, to do similar sorts of acts in their smaller lives. I don't mean smaller in a disparaging way, smaller lives.
Brett Baer from Fox called the president during his interview with the New York Times, but he didn't take the call. He was too busy talking to the guy from Colombia who was a little nervous about the next invasion.
Who went from sick man to it's a great honor to speak with you in one phone call. It's good to see you both, gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for joining us. We have been speaking with GBH politics reporter Adam Reilly and Yawu Miller, editor-in-chief of the nonprofit news outlet, the Flipside, flipsidenews.net. Thank you guys both for coming in. We say goodbye to those of you listening at NEPM. Make sure to tune in to the fabulous 413 at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Our show continues here in Boston. Coming up after the new news, the great satirist Andy Borowitz zooms in to mark his 25 years of the Borowitz Report. He's next. This is GBH, NEPM, live from the Boston Public Library.
You're listening to Boston Public Radio with Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan. Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Babson College, where you can advance your career with an MBA or specialized master's at the school ranked number 2 best college in the United States by the Wall Street Journal 2025. Babson.edu/grad programs. From tossing tea in the harbor to snowy battles against the British, Ken Burns and his team explore the incredible story of how America's founding turned the world upside down. Watch The American Revolution tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Braude, head on Hour 2 of BPR, live from the Boston Public Library. Our favorite satirist, New Hampshire's own Andy Borowitz, he zooms into the show on the 25th anniversary of the Great Borowitz Report. We will talk to him, well, you know who and what we're going to talk to him about.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then it's Live Music Friday with Patty Larkin. She'll perform for us live at the library. She's here promoting the reunion tour of On a Winter's Night with a show at the Regent in Arlington tomorrow. Plus, we'll check in with Edgar B. Hurwitz III to tell us about the latest iteration of his work, The Curiosity Show launching next month. It's all ahead in the second hour of BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Minnesota educators are demanding federal immigration agents stay away from their schools as tension across the state heightened in the wake of a Minneapolis woman's death at the hands of an ICE agent 2 days ago. At a press conference, the president of Education Minnesota, Monica Byron, said agents have been seen circling school property waiting for families to pick up their children.
We have seen our students assaulted and our colleagues wrongfully detained. Every moment ICE remains near our schools endangers children, educators, and families.
Meanwhile, state and local officials in Minneapolis are demanding their federal counterparts work with them to investigate this week's fatal shooting. The Department of Homeland Security maintains the woman was a rioter who put an agent's life in danger. Critics dispute the DHS's account. Immigration authorities are also involved in a shooting in Portland, Oregon that wounded 2 people. 5 Democratic-led states are suing the Trump administration over its move to block funding for low-income families. NPR's Jennifer Ludden reports the administration has accused the states of allowing fraud.
The administration has offered no evidence of ongoing fraud in these states, but it's demanded more data going back years on people who get cash aid and other social services, says Nick Gwynn of the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities.
They've asked for huge amounts of information, confidential information that relates to where families live, to come up with.
The states, California, Colorado, New York, Illinois, and Minnesota, say freezing this money is unlawful. Policy experts say fraud happens in every state, blue and red, and blaming only Democrats politicizes the issue. Jennifer Ludden, NPR News, Washington.
The U.S. Coast Guard has boarded and seized another tanker that was carrying oil from Venezuela. NPR's Greg Myrie reports this is the 3rd U.S. takeover of a ship this week and the 5th in the past month.
The Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, said U.S. Coast Guard forces boarded the tanker Olena in international waters east of the Caribbean Sea. She said the vessel was on the U.S. list of sanctioned oil tankers that often try to conceal their role in transporting oil from countries that include Venezuela, Russia, and Iran. Noem wrote, quote, "The ghost fleets will not outrun justice. They will not hide under false claims of nationality." U.S. forces began taking control of sanctioned oil tankers a month ago to put pressure on Venezuela's government. And the practice has continued following the ouster of President Nicolas Maduro last Saturday. Greg Myrie, NPR News, Washington.
At last check on Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is up 275 points, roughly 0.5%, at 49,541. It's NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. People opposed to the killing of a woman in Minnesota by an ICE agent will gather at the Hyannis Airport Rotary this afternoon. The peaceful demonstration and candlelight vigil begins at 4. Organizer Kelly Donathan is with the Immigrant Justice Network of Massachusetts.
We're standing in solidarity with those in Minneapolis and anyone that provides community support and protection against the ICE violence. We're also protesting what has been a pattern of violence of the immigration enforcement agencies.
The event will honor Renee Nicole Good, who was shot in Minneapolis this week, as well as the 32 people who died while in ICE custody in 2025. Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton pushing for a new and improved approach for the West-East Rail connecting the two ends of the Commonwealth. The Berkshire Eagle reports that for years many Democrats have supported improving and expanding the state's high-speed passenger rail network, and Moulton agrees. But his concern is that the current West-East Rail plan would be outdated before it's even built. Moulton favors a modern high-speed rail solution for the project. Celtics host the Raptors at the Garden tonight. Sunday night wildcard football. The Patriots host the LA Chargers at Gillette. And tennis fans will be happy to know that the Australian Open, the first of the big majors, starts on Monday. And get this, the sun sets at 4:30 this afternoon. We're getting there. 40 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance, home of the Name Your Price tool, so drivers can see coverage options at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law. And the listeners who support this NPR station.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. I know, I'm sorry. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. The Attorney General of the Commonwealth will be here January 13th, 11 to noon, and the Mayor of Boston will be with us January 20th, 12 to 1, taking our questions and yours. Hello again, Jim.
Speaking of questions, I have a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Who do you think is more depressed after the first hour of the show, our listeners or you and me?
Well, we're going to try to change that right now because it's very
deadly.
I know it's very difficult to. I wanted to talk about something fun, and you vetoed me, Jim. So it's your fault.
No, she wanted to talk about Mom Dami's beard, but we decided we wouldn't do that today. We'd save it for next week. Andy Borowitz of the great Borowitz Report, available at borowitzreport.com. His latest book is Profiles in Ignorance, How America's Politicians Got Dumb and Dumber. Andy is celebrating 25 years of the Borowitz Report. Andy, happy anniversary. Great to see you again. How are you?
Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. And speaking of being depressed and a basket case, you have helped me through this crisis because you are a riot, and it's really fun to read your stuff every day and talk to you. So thank you for joining us. But, I didn't know your origins. Tell people how the Borowitz Report began years and years ago.
Well, I was unemployed. I was just hanging out. This is how most things start. Right? And I was hanging out and in my bathrobe, and they had just invented the internet. And I started emailing fake news stories or made-up news stories to my friends. And this was like something that had started really for me as a kid because I was the editor of my high school newspaper. And the only reason I did that was because we did an April Fool's issue once a year. So I would sort of slog my way through the real news for 11 years, then the April Fool's issue. And then when I went to college at Harvard, which your audience may be familiar with.
That's right.
I was the president of the Harvard Lampoon. And we did parodies of the Harvard newspaper, the Crimson, which was a very serious newspaper.
Very serious. Very good.
Very good. Everybody there was auditioning for the New York Times.
Yeah.
So we would publish an issue of the Harvard Crimson on a day when they would not publish. So it would land on everybody's doorstep, and people would think it was real until they saw ridiculous stories that we had written. So I guess it's my way of saying that this is what I've been doing my entire life, and there's been really no growth of any kind.
Andy, I never, when you said you're writing fake news, I never thought about that. But you actually were doing fake news before.
That's right.
We lived in the era of fake news. But didn't you write the other day on your 25th anniversary? Was it China or some country that took seriously one of your deals? What was that? What was that one?
Well, when you say some country, Jim, China is a pretty major country.
No, that's a very good point, actually.
That's right.
It's not like the Republic of Togo here.
That's a good point.
Yeah, well, there was, after doing the Borowitz Report on my own for about, I guess, 12 years, the New Yorker decided to start publishing it.
Which is such a wonderful news magazine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost as good as the Harvard Crimson.
That's right.
But the New Yorker, my stories got a little bit more of a global distribution because the New Yorker is a major magazine. And some of my stories made their way to places like China. And the Chinese media, they actually were fooled by a couple of my stories. One story that they repeated, which was based in part on something true. Almost all my stories are. There was this period right after Trump was elected in 2016, right after he took office, where he became convinced, I'm not making this part up, he became convinced that Barack Obama was somehow eavesdropping on him in the White House.
Right.
And so I did a story where he instructed Kellyanne Conway and all of his underlings to wrap all the White House's phones in tinfoil. And this was reported really by major media outlets all over China, reaching like 1 billion people. And it was not the only time that they had been fooled by something I wrote. They had previously republished or reported a story that I had reported, which was right after Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post. I did a story where he claimed that he didn't mean to buy the Washington Post. He had just clicked on it by mistake. And he was having a heck of a time trying to get a refund. They didn't send him a QR code. And, So again, it really gives you some insight into how the Chinese think American business works, which is kind of interesting. So there was a period of time there for a while where the Chinese were pretty much reprinting everything that I was writing and taking it to be true. But before I get on to the 25th anniversary and all this, I've got to thank you guys because you were really early adopters, especially you, Marjorie. You used to quote when I was in my bathroom doing this for my friends, you would quote the stories in the Boston Herald in your column.
You were a riot. You still are a riot. I mean, like I said, it's. I think so many of us, and we could talk about this in a second. You wrote a thing about how to survive 2026. I think many of us are having a very difficult time. You need some humor, some levity.
Wait a second, let's not gloss over this. So she was a big help. So I assume I was not a big help. Is that your point? What is your point?
Well, Jim, I'm giving you an opportunity. What were you doing while Marjorie was?
I was reading Marjorie's damn column, my friend. So don't worry about what I was doing.
Okay.
But you were reading it to other people, or just
maybe I was, and maybe I wasn't. Before we get back to your brilliant work there, Andy Borowitz, you're in New Hampshire. Is that correct?
Well, I wanted to. I was living in the Arctic, and I wanted some warmer weather.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, really. What are you doing there? I mean, you're like a New York kind of kid, kind of thing. Yeah. I know you're a public official. We talked about once for were you on the library board for a week or something like that?
Ex officio.
Whatever it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
But really, I did briefly. So, I'm here for a couple of reasons. One is we came partially because they have an excellent school system. I have a daughter who's in high school. She's now been in the schools here for this, I think, her 6th year. She came in 5th grade during the pandemic. And we had some history here because my wife, who was a journalist, right out of college, worked for the Rutland, Vermont Herald, which is right across the border. So we had some roots here. It just seemed that the pandemic kind of pushed us out of New York, although we still spend a lot of time there, and we'll probably be there a bit more when our daughter goes to college because we'll have more flexibility with our schedule. But as people know who live in what we call the Upper Valley here in Hanover, in Vermont and New Hampshire, it's a great place to live.
Yeah, Hanover's a great place.
Excuse me, one last thing, if I may, just to get to the bottom of this, then we'll get back to your work. Marjorie won't raise this now, obviously, because you praised her a minute ago. When you're not here, her criticism of New Hampshire and why she says she could never live there is because they have no sidewalks. What's your reaction to Marjorie's position on that issue, Andy Borowitz?
Well, that's an interesting critique. I mean, I think that borders on being a fetish, Marjorie. I don't really know what your whole thing about sidewalks is.
Yeah.
I would actually, my critique, and I mean this in the kindest way possible, is they don't have a lot of restaurants. They could use a few more restaurants. Like, if you were like a little peckish, a little hungry at 10 o'clock at night here, New York, or Boston, you can just get anything. Here, the best restaurant open at 10 o'clock is this place called CBS. CBS.
Yeah.
I've got a turkey sandwich that was made maybe the day before. But that's really my only beef, really. Other than that, the people here are lovely. Because we have Dartmouth and Dartmouth-Hitchcock Hospital, everybody here has an advanced degree. I'm the least well-educated person on the street, including my wife. So.
And you get and you do get reasonable amount. We hardly ever get snow anymore, and it doesn't stick. At least global warming hasn't gotten so bad. You guys still get a decent amount of snow up there. Which is really kind of nice. I miss the snow so much here in Boston.
So Andy Borowitz, can we move back to your work for a second? We talked to you. We did an event with you when Profiles in Ignorance came out. Correct me if I'm wrong. Unfortunately, Elise Stefanik was not as big a deal as she became. So she didn't get her own chapter. Am I right in my recollection? She didn't get her own chapter or anything, right?
I believe, when the paperback came out in 2023, and you guys did that great event with me in Cambridge at the Unitarian Church, we were mobbed by Unitarians.
We were. That's right.
It was amazing. But I think I did mention her in the addendum, in the paperback addendum, but I've reported on her extensively at the Borowitz Report because I love the fact that there's sort of two Elise Stefanik's. There was what I called original recipe Elise Stefanik and then extra crazy Elise Stefanik. And Elise she was kind of like, her trajectory up to a point was kind of like Kristi Noem's. They were both kind of standard conservative to moderate Republicans. Kristi was more of a Tea Party Republican when she was elected, but Elise represented kind of an Obama district, kind of a purple district in New York, and she was known for being very bipartisan and being kind of like a reasonable Republican. And she didn't support Trump in 2016. She supported John Casey. Remember him?
Sure,
yes,
we did.
I
We
do.
had him on the show a lot.
Yeah, I liked him.
Yes, she was very kind of weirdly centrist. And then when Trump got elected, it was like just time to go, bananas. And that's exactly what she did. And you know what she's gotten for all of that? Really precious little. She
That's
got
right.
no career advancement whatsoever. She's like the opposition leader in Venezuela right now. You can suck up to this dude till the cows come home, and it will not do you any good because he just cares about one person. It's Donald Trump.
Well, in fairness, she was almost UN ambassador, but then she wasn't. And she was almost governor of New York. But correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't her whole campaign that Mamdani was a jihadist, which was sort of undercut when Donald Trump had his arms around Mamdani in the Oval Office? That was sort of the end, wasn't it, or was it?
Well, it didn't help. I mean, I think what hurt her more was the fact that her polls in New York sucked. She was clearly not going to win. And so, it's funny. Whenever a politician knows they're going to lose, they suddenly take a tremendous interest in parenting.
Yeah, that's right.
Like
their children.
She said the title that's the most important to me right now is Mom. And I don't question that. I'm glad that she wants to spend more time with her champ and her family, but has anyone consulted her family on this?
Yeah.
I want to nail that down. I think they should have consent. I really do.
Talking to Andy Borowitz on the 25th anniversary of the fabulous Borowitz
But
Report.
your piece about her, talking about how she was equating the QAnon shaman with Nelson Mandela and how she looked like she was snorting meth in front of Congress, and how now a moderate Republican is somebody to the right of, I always mispronounce this guy's name, Heinrich Himmler, whatever it was, the Nazi guy.
Good.
I mean, it is a brilliant piece about Elise Stefanik, who really sold her soul, as you point out, for absolutely nothing. It was, it's kind of a sad state of affairs for poor Elise, but she's going to be gone soon, home with her children. You're right, we don't know how they feel about this whole thing. So we talked about people standing up to Trump and how people have not stood up to Trump, even with the richest people in the world, like Tim Cook from Apple and Jeff Bezos from the Washington Post. The Washington Post editorial page has become bonkers. How people that are comedians, it's like Jimmy Kimmel and Colbert. Colbert had this great hat on. Was it last night or the night
Cowboy
before?
hat for,
he was imitating Kristi Noem with this huge cowboy hat. She's always got the huge cowboy hat on. And Colbert with the cowboy hat, it was a riot. And Kimmel has been like, ever since he got back on the air, I've started taping him every day because I think he's really brilliant. And he's become like one of the chief Trump critics in the whole country. But it's weird that it's TV comedians that are doing a lot of the Trump bashing.
Well, I mean, let's not forget that the president of Ukraine is a comedian.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
I mean, I don't want to overstate the role of comedians because it sounds very self-serving. And I have nothing against being self-serving. I just don't like to be caught doing it. But, I think one of the roles of a comedian, especially with a creeping or an already there autocracy, is to mock these guys because they're terrified of being made fun of. They live totally on the basis of people's fear of them and their sense of invulnerability and power. And actually, Trump is a very fragile, he's in terrible health. He has a very small minority in Congress and very poor polling, which is why his actions with ICE and things like that are getting more and more extreme and more desperate.
Yeah.
He's like, a punch-drunk fighter in like the 10th round or something here. And so they really want to shut people like this up. It's why political cartoonists like Ann Talmas, who stood up to the Washington Post when they censored her, she's now on Substack and she's like more like vicious and lethal than ever. I'm so happy for her. I've done some.
You did a thing with her, didn't you? Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've done a couple things with her. I've just gotten to know her really since she left the Post. I reached out to her and said, I'd love you to be on my podcast. And then we wound up collaborating. But I really do think that comedy has a role to play here. And it's I don't want to overstate it. I don't think that we bring down the autocrat. If that were the case, we would have brought down this guy a long time ago, because it's been like 10 years of ridiculing him. But I do think right now, where people are so terrified, it's important that people like Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert are standing up, because it kind of empowers everybody.
Yeah, no, I think it's a big deal. By the way, we forgot to mention something, Jim.
What's that?
Well, Andy was talking about Little Andy and how he was the editor of his high school newspaper. We have a lovely little picture.
We do have a photograph.
Of Little Andy that we.
Yeah. Look at you, your little striped whatever that is.
Now, where was Little Andy at this particular juncture? I remember how old you were, Andy.
I remember vividly. I was probably 4 or 5. And I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and my mother took me to a photo studio that was especially for kids, called Clown Town. And the reason it was called Clown Town, insert bad political joke here. The reason it was called Clown Town was because they thought that to get kids in the mood to smile, it would be great to have a clown take a photograph. Now, kids are famously terrified of clowns. I'm no exception. So the fact that I looked so kind of happy in that picture, kind of a miracle, because I found that clown absolutely horrifying.
Well, by the way, I love that you have, I don't know if you can see it on Zoom, but Andy's got his little, his little fist under his chin, like a grown-up little Andy. It was a really sweet.
And the shirt is something special.
Kind of thing.
Absolutely, something special.
Can we talk a little bit more? Of course we can. It's all we do. Let's talk a little bit more about Trump. I don't know if you've read my favorite story of the day, which Marjorie said I had to save till 1 o'clock, but I've blown it twice, is that we all know that Donald Trump was totally unfairly denied the Nobel Peace Prize.
Correct.
And they had the audacity to give it to this opposition leader who, as we in Venezuela, who we learned from Donald Trump, is totally disrespected by all the people, even though polls show she's the most popular politician there. We just read yesterday 2 interesting things. One, that when she meets with Trump next week, she's going to give him the Nobel Peace Prize. Let's start with that. And he said he would truly appreciate it. It'd be a great honor. Is a second-hand Nobel Peace Prize as good as the real thing, Andy Borowitz?
Well, I don't think so. And I also think it's kind of I know she means well.
Yeah.
But receiving the Nobel Peace Prize has to be kind of a come down after you've already gotten the FIFA one.
That's right.
Well, that's the real deal. It's sort of like you've gotten the Oscar and now you're going to get the People's Choice Award. Who cares?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, wait. Tell the second part of the story you said before.
Second part.
No, this is for Marjorie. Washington Post thing.
The Washington Post had a couple of sources that said that had she not won the Peace Prize,
had she turned it down.
Had she turned it down, that's correct. Had she turned down the Peace Prize, she would now be the president of Venezuela. That a lot of the Venezuela not giving her back the presidency because she won the election was because of that. And there was also a theory. Jim was poking fun about me about this, but you talking about how people like Trump don't like to get mocked. That one of the reasons he went for Maduro when he did is he was so sick of Maduro mocking him and dancing, and he had these good moves that Trump didn't have on the dance floor, and that he couldn't stand seeing Maduro make fun of him. So, that goes to your theory.
I did hear about that, but you mean to tell me that Maduro has a better move than this? That is Trump's signature. Look out, Twyla Tharp. That is an incredible move.
So, Andy Borowitz, you said that one of the things that is going to help us all survive in 2026 is music. And many people have been upset about what's going on with ICE in these last few days. I never heard of this guy, Jesse Wells, until you told me about Jesse Wells. And this is people should listen to this lyrics. We're going to play a little bit of his song. Performing Join ICE. He performed this in the Late Show back in November with Stephen Colbert, but I was late to the game. I just heard about it in anticipation of talking to you. So here is Jesse Wells, Join ICE.
I got picked on in school, I never felt that cool. There's a hole in my soul that just rages. All the ladies turned me down and I felt like a clown. But will you look at me now, I'm putting folks in cages. At ICE, for respect and power, join ICE, I hear they got great hours. There's a sign-on bonus of 50 grand. They're in need of you needing to feel like a man. Join ICE.
I thought that was great. I mean, his whole album is great. He's really talented. But what else do we do to survive 2026? I think people are, I said this to Jim before the show, I feel like I can't get away from all these terrible things, and it's really upsetting.
Well, okay, I'm not going to be serious for a minute, okay? So a little disclaimer.
Be serious.
What I'm about to say will not be funny, because this is all just good advice. So we read the news too much. I know that you guys are in the news business, so I don't mean to, reduce your listenership. But, back in the day when I was growing up, when I was that little kid posing at Clown Town, you got a morning newspaper and then you had the news on at night. Yeah. And that was kind of it.
That was it.
I think there's got to be a happy medium between that and having our phones out and doom scrolling all day. There's got to be somewhere in between. Maybe limit your intake. Say, I'm going to check the news when I wake up, maybe midday if I want, and then maybe at the end of the day, if that. But, I had this experience after 9/11. I was living in New York, and like most people in the New York area, it was an absolutely traumatic experience, even if you were not directly involved in being attacked or being displaced. And I remember at that point, I suddenly subscribed to things like Foreign Affairs. And I was reading about Pashtun warlords in Pakistan. And then after a couple of months, I realized, actually, I'm not the Secretary of State. I have no impact on any of this. And so it's good to be informed. If you know what's going on in the world, it's good to be informed well enough to make an informed choice at the ballot box or to volunteer or donate to a politician or a cause. But we don't need to know what's going on a minute-to-minute basis. And by the way, no one's better at just dominating our attention span than Donald Trump. He used to do this when he was just a real estate mogul or bankrupt mogul in New York, and he would dominate the back pages of the New York Post. He's been, the great thing about a malignant narcissist is they're very good at getting your attention.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry. Do you live what you were just prescribing for people?
Well, that was a very astute observation because I should live it more. I mean, what I try to do is listen to the BBC. And the reason I do that, and I know that National Public Radio broadcasts the news hours.
I love the BBC. They're great.
I'm not interfering with your brand. There are a couple reasons why I like it. One is because their perspective and their view is so much broader than most American news channels. Most American news channels are just totally into the Trump story, and that's all they report. And then when something terrible happens, like what's happened in Minnesota, which deserves our attention, that becomes the only story they cover for 24 hours. And I'm not saying that is not worthy of reporting. It certainly is. But when you listen to the BBC, you find out that there's actually this continent called Africa. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but there's some bad stuff going on there too. Mm-hmm. And you learn about what's going on in Europe. And actually listening to news about the UK is always kind of soothing because the stakes are just so much smaller in the UK. It's a much smaller country. And so they basically will talk about things like alternate side of the street parking. I mean, it's not quite at that level, but it sort of takes us out of ourselves a little bit.
Yeah.
And no longer the center of the universe. It's a tremendous amount of pressure if we actually are hooked into this very anxiety-provoking story all the time. I think, as I said, be informed, but maybe try to dial it back a bit.
Andy Bartz, I know we think this. You are one of our all-time favorites, and we're thrilled. You've been doing 25 years, and here's to at least a ton of more years, Andy. Congratulations and thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you very, very much.
Subscribe, everybody.
Andy Borowitz.
BorowitzReport.com. It is spectacular.
It is spectacular.
And will probably lift your spirits.
Oh, it's very good for your mental health. I mean, it's very funny. And I mean, we all need to laugh, even though there's not that much to laugh about. Anyway,
see you, Andy. Take care.
Thank you very much, Andy.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We've been speaking with Andy Borowitz of the Borowitz Report, which is available at BorowitzReport.com. That's BorowitzReport.com. His latest book, which is a riot as well, is Profiles in Ignorance: How America's Politicians Got Dumb and Dumber.
Can I say one thing about the book? Unlike his column, or whatever you want to call it, which is, he said, is fake news, the book is all based on fact.
It's
all
based
the
on fact.
profiles of the dumbest politicians who've ever lived are based upon real things they said did.
That's right.
It's spectacular reading.
And you can't believe that some of them are so dumb, but they are. Okay.
What a waste it is to lose one's mind or not to have a mind at all. How true that is.
That's
that
right.
would be Dan Quayle doing the motto
Quayle.
of the whatever.
Okay.
United Negro College Fund.
Coming up after this quick break, it is Live Music Friday
Thank
with the
God.
great Patty Larkin. She is next. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR at 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
After devastating floods hit central Texas last summer, families whose daughters died at a girls' sleepaway camp are keeping their legacies alive by giving back.
They were going to do such big things and make such an impact on the world. We can't snuff that light out.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly. That story on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Vivo Performing Arts, formerly Celebrity Series, presenting Alfredo Rodriguez and Pedrito Martinez for an evening pulsing with the spirit of Cuban musical traditions. January 24th at Berkeley Performance Center. VivoPerformingArts.org. And Bunker Hill Community College, registering for Online Winter Session, a 3-week session starting January 5th, designed to help students catch up on classes and get ahead. bhcc.edu/winter.
Welcome back to BPR. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. As we've told you, the Attorney General joins us for an hour here at the library on the 13th of January. Mayor Wu joins us for an hour on the 20th of January. You know, to have one of our favorite satirists ever, Andy Borowitz, followed by, and I know I speak for you, one of our favorite singer-songwriters ever for Live Music Friday is a thrill. That person is the great Patty Larkin, former artist in residence at Berklee College of Music, now on the faculty at the Fine Arts Work Center. She's on a reunion tour titled On a Winter's Night with a show tomorrow night at the Regent Theater in Arlington. Tickets at pattylarkin.com. We'll speak with Patty in a moment, but first let's hear some music. I think she's performing tango. Is that correct? Patty, welcome. We're thrilled to have you.
Bits of metal, heart of gold, will of steel. tango, me and you again. Don't change outfits and don't bother pressing your clothes. I'm coming to see you and I want to see you up close. Kinda like romance, kinda like tight pants, kinda like original sin, kinda like a tango. Encounters, all that I remember, it's all the love in my life, all the love in my life, all the love in my life, all the love in my life. Bells are ringing inside, going off. Listen, holiday season, get out your greeting card. Kinda like champagne, kinda like Coltrane, with the volume turned up to 10. Kinda like a tango, me and you again. Just like lambada craze, dancing till dawn in the den. Kinda like a tango, me and you again.
The Regent Theater, and you can get tickets. She'll tell us about the tour at pattylarkin.com. She's joining us in a second here.
That's right. And it's only a little ways away in Arlington.
It is indeed.
Very close by the Regent Theater. pattylarkin.com for tickets. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for cheering us up with your music, changing the whole thing.
I need this for home use.
Yeah, that's right. So tell us about the song you just played. It was Tango.
Yeah, it's the title of an album that I put out a while back, 91. But it's just a lot of fun to play, and I did take a tango lesson or two, and it's terribly hard.
Oh, really?
I say that. Yeah, but
very sexy.
Yeah, it is. It is. God,
yeah. Wait a second. Isn't tango also on 25? Am I wrong?
Yes, it is, and I have copies for.
By the way, 25. One of my all-time favorite albums. 25 is 25. Can't remember when I'm wrong. 25 songs on the 25th anniversary of performing. Every one of which is done with somebody. Mary Chapin, a carpenter.
Yep. Sean Colvin.
Janice Ian. Katie Curtis, who's a great friend of the show, has been here a number of times and all those kind of things. It's fabulous. Why are you carrying around that with you? Are you pushing it again?
I'm pushing it. Definitely
great.
pushing it because it went out of print and I reprinted them and they're available at shows for a couple weeks and then it'll be online.
One of my favorite albums.
It's all acoustic love songs and duets with these folks that are just unbelievable.
How are you, by the way? Last time we saw
good.
you a couple of years ago, you just had a horrible fall.
Yes.
You're recovering. You were never going to recover, and then you did recover. Are you good or you're not good?
I'm good. I can't do the splits, but I never could. So
Yeah,
I think I'm okay.
So
it's good.
So what's going to go on over in Arlington on this Saturday?
Well, this is a tour that Christine Lavin put out an album called On a Winter's Night. She calls it Makeout Music. But
Makeout music, I love it.
Yeah, this was a long time ago, and we did a 25th or 30th anniversary reunion tour a few years ago. And this group has kind of gelled as the tour company. It's 3 other songwriters, Lucy Kaplansky, John Gorka, Cliff Eberhardt, and myself. And they're just fabulous. They're great vocalists, great writers. They were part of the whole 90s songwriting scene that was so popular here in Boston and still is, really.
Oh, terrific.
Didn't Kaplansky, isn't she the one that did Tango with you?
I was going to drop that name for that,
Well,
yeah.
I just dropped it right there. I beat you to it. So you did something that I also, I don't want to fawn over you, but I think you know I'm a huge fan, and so is Marjorie.
Likewise.
You've done an incredible thing with poetry, of which we're both fans. I became more of a fan after I started working with Marjorie. Tell people what you've done.
Well, I was teaching at the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown, and during Poetry Week, I was teaching lyric writing of all the chutzpah in the world, and meeting people like Natalie Diaz and Marie Howe, Nick Flynn, and Robert Pinsky, who's fabulous. And I had written a song or music to a Stanley Kunitz poem, and I just got inspired to continue that theme and that method, and there's 10 poets' work that I set to song that's called Bird in a Cage, and it was really, really fun because they I always say, poets, they actually really have a way with words.
Yeah.
They're fearless.
Thank you. But I thought I read somewhere a while ago about that your method of writing, tell me, obviously, correct me if I'm wrong, is you write the music and then you write the words. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So
I work off the guitar a lot.
The words are done.
Yeah.
And you have to do a total 180. How hard was that?
It was really fun. I mean, I kept moving through compilations or someone's book or, and if the music came, then I would stop on that page. And I loved writing that.
And how do the poets react to this? I mean, did anybody give you a hassle, or is it okay with them? Well, really, the copyright issues and all that stuff?
Well, there was one that, that when her publisher would not give permission. But otherwise, no, Marie Howe, we were going to
This
do
is
a
What the
tour.
Living Do. That's one of my favorite poems of all time.
Yeah.
She's over in Cambridge. It's a great poem about, I think she had a brother that died of AIDS. Yeah, and it's a wonderful a poem.
Terribly beautiful.
Yeah.
But I backed her up on electric guitar playing a violin bow at the Work Center for a fundraiser, and so the idea was that Natalie Diaz or Pinsky, he has a little not a little jazz combo, it's an awesome combo that backs him up, and he does poetry live, and so he was interested, and Nick Flynn has his own band and does a lot of music. So the idea was we were going to do some work together, like a show together, and COVID hit. So that was, I kind of put the kibosh on that, and I just got to get back to that.
Who screwed you? Who wouldn't give you the song?
I'm not going to say.
Come on, I mean, really.
She's dead now.
Then let's not.
Yeah, let's move on.
Who is she? Who is she?
Jim always does this. Just ignore him.
Wait, I didn't bring it up. She brought it up.
Oh, you were. Trouble.
Yeah, I was thinking, literature is such a big part of your work, and I was thinking, Patty Smith's she's got this new book, Book of Angels, is it? Bread of Angels, this new book she's got out now, and she is a poet, and she talks a lot about literature too, and it's an inspiration. I think in one of these stories I read where this is when you begin your day by reading poetry.
I do, yeah, and I'm on a Mary Oliver kick because my daughter gave me the new book of a compilation. I don't know what we call it, an anthology of her work. But
what are you going to do with your one? Silly Life, that last line of that poem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Provincetown. She was in Provincetown for years, which is right near you in Wellfleet.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just passed away a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's big with the Jesuits. The Catholic Jesuits love Mary Oliver. You see a lot of the things that they write about, they talk about.
My uncles were Carmelites, so
they
swung and a miss. But Ada Limon, who's the poet laureate, she's doing this connection with parks and nature and poetry, and there's a beech forest in Provincetown. You go right around the circle, you can park right there and walk up to the first picnic table you see, and there is a Mary Oliver poem on the picnic table that's year-round, like installed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
We did a whole show on Ada Limon with Richard Blanco.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, she's wonderful
Brilliant.
too.
Awesome.
So what does that do to your psyche to get up in the morning and read poetry? So many people say, and I've said it a million times, why don't I read more poetry? Well, Donald Trump. I think I'd feel a lot better if I was reading poetry instead of Donald Trump.
Or maybe he should read poetry.
Maybe he should read poetry. Yeah, but it changes your thinking.
Right, because we're very concrete, and like I said, they're fearless, and they make these connections and jumps that are just fascinating to me, awesome. And then, just the use of the sound of the words, or
you're doing a rotten job of promoting your own stuff. I have to say, you really are. Can you hold up each of those CDs
so
you're holding here?
This is me in another life.
Yeah.
Sort of the same here.
This
is 25.
That's 25.
It's a double.
And now you're supposed to
I'm
hold
giving
up
these
Bird
to
in a
you.
Cage.
And 25 is the love songs with all the different artists.
Yes.
Okay.
And then this is Bird in the Cage.
Great.
Which is with the poetry.
Yeah.
And you're about to perform one of the selections from Bird. What is it?
The Fool's Song. It was written. The lyric, or the poem, was written by William Carlos Williams in 1913.
Wow.
And his parents were immigrants, and his first language was Spanish. And he was born in New Jersey, and not only was he a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer, but he was a medical doctor. And so this was 2017 or 18 when I put music to it. It was the last thing I added to the album, and it resonated with me then, and it's really resonant.
Want to go do it?
These times.
Can
I
you
would
gently
love to.
put your
Thank you.
headset down?
Oh yeah, right.
And thanks for the
I'm going to drive away with it.
We're thrilled to see you and hear you play.
We've been talking, we're about to listen again to Patty Larkin, former artist in residence at Berklee College of Music, now in the faculty of the Fine Arts Work Center. She's on a reunion tour titled On a Winter's Night, and she's got a show tomorrow at the Regent Theater in Arlington. Tickets available at pattylarkin.com. That's pattylarkin.com.
And this is the full song. Is that right there, Patty Larkin? She's going to do the full song.
The full song from
William
Bird in the
Carlos
Cage.
Williams and Patty Larkin. Here it is.
The bird in the cage.
I tried to put a bird in a cage. Ah, fool that I am. For the bird was true, saying merrily truth in a cage. Fool I am. And when the bird had flown from the cage, ah, fool that I am. I had no bird, nor cage. Sing merrily truth, fool I am. Day by day, sing dreamers say, one of these days you will fly with only the truth to carry your way. The truth survives. Dia a dia, cantos otros cantan. Uno de estos días vas a volar con solo la verdad. Para llegar a tus alas, solo la verdad sobrevive. Tried to put truth in a cage. I tried to put truth in a cage. Tried to put truth in a cage.
Songwriter Patty Larkin on a reunion tour titled On a Writer's Night, a show tomorrow night at the Regent Theater in Arlington. Tickets at pattylarkin.com. pattylarkin.com. Tomorrow night at the Regent Theater in Arlington. Thank you so much, Patty Larkin.
you,
Coming
Patty.
up
That was great.
after this quick break, Edgar B. Hurd III joins us to preview the Curiosity Show, which is going to launch in February in the 1 o'clock hour in our new time schedule. 89.7 GBH. He's Jim Browdy. I'm Marjorie Egan, listening to BPR and GBH live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
This week on Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, 2025 is declared one of the costliest years for climate disasters. Environmental protections for the proposed Everett Soccer Stadium, and will you eat shellfish harvested from Boston Harbor? It's our environmental news roundtable. That's Under the Radar with me, Callie Crossley, Sunday night at 6 here on 89.7 GBH and the GBH app.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the Massachusetts Health Connector for Business. Premium value plans can help small business owners find and offer accessible employee health benefits. Learn more at mahealthconnector.org/business. And Boston Ski and Tennis, helping families stay active and outdoors this winter, offering a range of winter sport products and services with locations in Newton and Westboro or online at bostonskiandtennis.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Egan, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. If you were listening yesterday, we mentioned starting the first week in February, at our request, Boston Public Radio goes to a 2-hour show 11 to 1. 1 to 2, Edgar B. Herrick III, the host of a brand new show, he hopes, called The Curiosity Desk. Congratulations.
Curiosity Show.
And do you have any idea what the hell you're doing
It's a
on the
Curiosity
show?
Desk?
Jim, we have no idea. But you know what? We've got a couple of weeks. We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Wait, what's the show called?
Curiosity Desk.
It is a Curiosity Desk.
Yes.
Okay, there's a typo in here. That's
Okay,
okay.
good.
That's okay.
Okay, so what are you going to do? What's your plan, Edgar?
What's
we don't
the plan?
know? No idea?
We have no idea. No, I mean,
Just
the plan
wing it.
is,
Just wing it.
You know, we've been doing the Curiosity Desk in some form or fashion at GBH for many years. We've done it as radio features, digital stuff. So what we're doing is we're trying to take the spirit of what we've done in that show and bring it into a daily hour-long show. So we'll do news stuff, but you guys are so great at the way you do the news. You know what I mean? You're
Unbelievable.
fantastic. So, you know, we're going to try, we'll probably do more deep dives into small aspects of stories or bigger context, either historical or geographic context. We're going to do a lot of language. We're going to do words and how they are used and where they come from. We're going to do a lot of America 250 stuff this year because we really love history. So we'll have lots of and not just Revolutionary War era stuff, but America's 250 years of history. And we'll look at some cool stories in there. And then the thing that we've done from the start, which is listeners, we want them to ask us questions, and then we want to go and find answers for them.
Well, let me tell you something. Some readers of the Globe story on the New Era were not so happy. Here's what they said.
Oh, boy.
This guy, an obvious attempt by Browdy to cover for the fact that he is so unpopular that he is losing airtime to a show that spends its time talking about the origins of traffic speed bumps.
Yeah, there you go.
So we're not doing great with that guy.
No. So, you know, there's one listener. I think we can convert him, Jim.
You
Between
think
you
so?
and me, I think we can convert him.
Absolutely.
So I am really excited. So, you know, we're going to do, as I said, we're going to do questions and answers. And we have years of questions that we haven't got to. So I can tell you the first one we're going to take on.
Speed bumps.
What?
No. So I'm going to read this question. This came in this came in a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I'm trying to connect with a long-lost lover. I think it's fair to say soulmate. She's been difficult to track down. Perhaps she's become more reclusive due to the fact that she was once a high-profile shot put champion. Her name is Harriet Heineman. Can you find her for me? So that was from a listener, Jim in Cambridge.
Jim in Cambridge. There you go.
Are you nervous, by the way?
Am I nervous?
Yeah.
No, not really.
It's really great, and it's really exciting.
I am excited. I am humbled. You know, I think I am appropriately nervous, but I'm really excited. I think there's a lot of interesting stories out there. I think there's a lot of interesting people around here, and a lot of great talent in our newsroom. And I hope we can.
Should say starting.
We stunk for about 3 years when we first started.
Well, that's really a great oopening for him.
Perfect. So I got a 3-year
11
runway.
to 1 is going to be us. 1 to 2 you, 2 to 3 the Culture Show.
It's the dream lineup.
We're thrilled.
The dream
We're going to talk to you a
lineup.
lot in the next month about this because I really want to get to the bottom because I think you're making most of this up.
Yeah.
I'm not clear that you really do know what you're doing, but you have 3 weeks. Who the hell cares?
3 weeks.
You know,
That's right.
We'll make it work.
Edgar, congratulations. The
Thank you. Thank you
Curiosity Desk coming to GBH first week in February. Congratulations, Edgar. And our former producer, who's his lead
Aidan
producer,
Connolly. He's
the great
left
Aidan
us.
Connolly.
Okay, after
Fantastic.
the 1 o'clock news, media maven Sue O'Connell will be right back.
Join GBH for Behind the Curtain, an inside look into the making of the new hit musical, Wonder. You'll be joined by their acclaimed creative team for an interactive virtual discussion. Get your ticket now at gbh.org/events.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Fixed Dental, offering permanent teeth-on implants, customized in their laboratory, enabling their doctors and technicians to oversee every aspect of the smile design. Learn more about all the treatments offered at Fixed at fixeddental.com. And Atlantic Design Center by Eldridge Lumber and Hardware, committed to helping you achieve your vision for a new kitchen or bathroom and guiding you from design to completion with showrooms in York and Portland, Maine. AtlanticDesignCTR.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of BPR, live from the Boston Public Library. We'll start the 1 o'clock hour with NBC 10's Media Maven, our favorite local woman, Sue O'Connell, on trans athletes getting their day at the Supreme Court next week, and the most popular opposition leader in Venezuela about to turn over her Nobel Peace Prize to the rightful winner, Donald J. Trump.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then we'll end the week talking backseat drivers and bad drivers generally. Are you the kind of person that always has an opinion about how your spouse is doing behind the wheel? Or are you the poor driver constantly annoyed by the Peanut Gallery Riding Shotgun. Weigh in next in the third hour of BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. Minnesota authorities are asking the public to send in video or any other evidence they have that could help them with the investigation of a Minneapolis woman's fatal shooting by a federal immigration agent this week. Here's State Attorney General Keith Ellison.
She died trying to be a legal assistant to legal observer to look out for the interests of the most vulnerable members of our community.
The administration says the agent who shot Renee Good acted in self-defense. Federal agents are also under scrutiny over a shooting in Portland, Oregon that injured 2 people. It touched off protests outside an ICE facility last night. The Trump administration maintains agents are authorized to act if they are threatened while attempting to enforce immigration law. The newest Labor Department numbers show U.S. hiring in December cooled further and brought to a close the slowest year of job growth since the onset of the pandemic. Employers added 50,000 jobs, falling short of the widely projected 70,000. As recent polls suggest growing disapproval with President Trump's handling of the economy, they also indicate strong support for his military action in Venezuela among Republicans. At the same time, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll, a majority of those surveyed are concerned the U.S. will become too involved in Venezuela. Here's Trump speaking to Fox News' Sean Hannity.
It's going to take a while to do it. We have to rebuild the country. They couldn't have an election. They wouldn't even know how to have an election right now. The country's become third world, and they wouldn't know how to have an election right now. We're going to rebuild the oil and the oil infrastructure. We'll be in charge of it.
And make a lot of money, President Trump adds. The president told the New York Times this week the only thing that constrains him on foreign policy is his morality and mind. A new NPR Ipsos poll finds that most Americans want the U.S. to be the moral leader in the world, but far fewer think it is. NPR's Frank Langfitt has details.
Just over 60% think the U.S. should be the world's moral leader, according to the poll. But 45% say it isn't. Sarah Bowling is a Democrat who lives in Little Rock. She says the U.S. attack on Venezuela is a good example.
It's not about anything that has to do with the betterment of the people in Venezuela. It's solely due to taking over the resources in that land, and that is not moral to me in my world.
By contrast, more than 60% of Republicans say the U.S. is the world's moral leader and that it should not hesitate to use its military power. Frank Langfitt, NPR News.
U.S. stocks are trading higher this hour. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is now up 200 points at 49,465. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. More than 150 animals have been seized from a property in Hadley after reportedly living without adequate access to food, water, and shelter from the cold. MSPC Angel says most of the animals are birds, including farm birds like chickens and geese, as well as domestic birds like parrots and cockatiels. There are also goats, cows, pigs, sheep, rabbits, and one pony, along with some animals that are illegal to have as pets in Massachusetts, including a deer and some Canada geese. The animals will be brought to MSPC Angel facilities to be cared for while a court process plays out. And drive anywhere in Massachusetts and you will see them. The special license plate commemorating the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution and Massachusetts' role in it. Registrar of Motor Vehicles Colleen Ogilvie says the plate has caught the public's imagination.
It is absolutely wildly popular. I think the unique blue background with the red lettering and the white lettering, it's unique and it looks different. And it's a wonderful way for us to celebrate Massachusetts history. Very popular in Massachusetts. We get about 1,500 to 1,800 requests a week for a plate.
Plate looks like it's from a different state. Ogilvie says the 250th anniversary has surprised the Cape and Islands as the most popular specialty plate among Massachusetts drivers. So far, just under 1,700 people have signed up for the special plates in Barnstable County. 43 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. RWJF is a national philanthropy working toward a future where health is no longer a privilege but a right. Learn more at rwjf.org.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. One more time, Jim, the Attorney General is going to be with us January 13th, Andrea Joy Campbell, and the Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, will be with us January 20th. The AG will be from 11 to 12 on the 13th, and the Mayor will be from noon to 1 on the 20th, taking our questions and yours. Hello again.
Hey, and in answer to your question, we are waiting to hear back from the governor for her January date, which we'll share with you as soon as we get it. Joined now live at the library by NBC 10 media maven Sue O'Connell, our favorite local woman and co-publisher of the South End News and Bay Windows. Good day, Sue O'Connell.
Good day. Good day. Happy New Year to everyone. I'm going to continue saying Happy New Year through the entire month. I'm just warning you right now.
Did I hear you saying to Patty Larkin, who you obviously know well, you sang with her?
Well, I was exaggerating to tell the story. We went to some 20 years ago, Patty Larkin and hundreds of others went to the Coolidge Corner sing-along to the Sound of Music.
Oh, okay.
And we were sitting in the theater together singing.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's sort of like singing.
It's kind of like
with her.
singing together.
Okay.
So I'm a big fan, as I told you before the show, of your Instagram postings.
Thank you. You and 100,000 other people.
Good for you.
Yes,
good
it
for
is.
You.
Yes,
great,
yes.
actually.
Thank you.
So you did a good one on the killing in Minneapolis, the ICE killing. What'd you say?
Well, my reaction is, anybody jumping to conclusions is sort of living their bias. There's obviously a lot of concerning things happening, but if you are immediately saying this is what happened, you are wrong because you don't have the information. Having just come off these Karen Reed trials where everyone is upset that former state trooper Michael Proctor jumped to conclusions about Karen Reed, some of the same people are jumping to conclusions saying that this driver did this, or that, and not at all being objective about it. And it is not normal for the head of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, or the President of the United States, or the Vice President to come out before there's been an investigation and tell you that someone is a domestic terrorist. Anybody who does that is jumping the gun here, so to speak. I don't mean to make a pun there, but at the same time, you have to be objective and let the facts lead you. And all of our leaders, all of our investigators, all of our department heads in the administration should be taking a cold-eyed, objective viewpoint of what happened there and then making recommendations. It also impedes the investigation, which we know is already going to go off the rails the way of the Epstein files, since the FBI has taken over the investigation and they're not cooperating with the Minnesota state investigators. So it's just none of this is normal to have something happen and then have somebody jump to a conclusion. I mean, as this is developing, we are hearing the audio from that tape where Nicole was told to, she said, I'm pulling out. They said, pull out. Then they said, get out of the car. And she said, I'm going.
Get the F out of the car.
Yep. So there is this conflicting, over seconds, conflicting information that she was given, that she was responding to. It's developing and jumping to conclusions about it on all sides. I mean this by all sides. But I think we can all agree that ICE should not be on the ground in Minnesota, Minneapolis, or anywhere else, and that being there is making more problems than they think they're solving.
Well, the all sides thing, I'm fine with you saying you shouldn't jump to conclusions. However, there's certain things like she, quote, viciously ran over.
Yeah, that's wrong.
Is just factually inaccurate.
That's wrong.
And that's what Trump did on Truth
I
Social
agree.
at the beginning of this thing. You have 100,000 people. That's terrific.
Yes,
that's
it's
really
great.
Good.
It's very hard because you have to keep feeding them or else they leave
that is
you.
a problem, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah. So
can we go ahead.
I just saw on the newswire flashing over there at the Newsfeed Cafe that some members of Congress are trying to do something about Elon Musk Grok AI generated thousands of people with their faces and naked or half-naked bodies on Grok, and some of them are minors.
Yep. So here's what's happening over in Elon Musk's world. Grok, which is their AI, if you use ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, the Elon Musk version is Grok. And Grok lives on a couple of platforms, lives on X, obviously, and also as a desktop, and also something that you can buy to use in your companies. Grok Grok primarily on X and the app for Grok. Over Christmas, over the holidays, people started asking it to undress people. So it would say, Grok, give me a picture of this person in a bikini or worse. And Grok would do it, and then it would be published on X in people's replies. Now, Grok has always been able to do this to some degree, but people really weren't using it in that way. And, you know, almost any AI can be used to do anything, but the issue here is that at no time did Elon Musk or anybody at X think that taking child celebrities, and mostly women and elected officials, and filling their replies on X with images of them naked or worse was a problem. So they let this go all through the holidays, and then people complained to the App Store, to the Apple App Store, saying, you have this marked as for all ages, Grok, when obviously it's being used for pornography. You know, homemade pornography.
Yeah, because a lot of times the people are in these very twisted pretzel-like positions.
Right, and so Apple responded by making it a 13-plus app now, so your 13-year-old can go on and ask it to undress and put pornographic images on, make you do pornographic stuff. And now members of Congress are acting, trying to demand that there be more guardrails here. Listen, the arguments on all this...
Which other AI has?
Yes, I mean, the issue here with all of AI is there has to be guardrails on what it can and cannot do. Certainly, if you wanted to take AOC's image and go home and sketch out something of her doing pornographic and then take a picture of it, you can do that. That's your First Amendment right. But these platforms should not be allowing you to post it. Right? And one of the ways that you could tell, I always laugh about this because if my phone ever gets confiscated, they're going to see that on a regular basis when Elon Musk took over X, I searched for porn on X. And the reason I searched for porn was before Elon Musk was in charge of it, you weren't supposed to see porn on X or on Twitter. Occasionally it would seep through, and that's how you could tell how the guardrails were working, by how much porn was on Twitter. Now it's flooded with it because there are no guardrails. And so your kids, your grandmother, and you know, obviously the other part of this is most of the people being targeted with these pornographic images are women. Right? Our public officials are women who are still posting on X, and that's the response that they're getting.
Or girls.
And children.
And can you imagine
children.
how upsetting this would be to children?
Yes.
Or a 15-year-old girl?
Yeah, there's a number of
to her?
celebrity kids who are going through this. Their parents are working on trying to get it taken off. They didn't sign up for them to be turned into pornographic images.
And they're apparently not responding when people complain to X and say, please stop this.
Nope.
I mean,
Did you leave? You left X for a while?
No, I left X, but you know what? The reality is that that's where I think a lot. I laugh about this all the time. I'd love to boycott everybody I don't agree with for a lot of reasons. Like it is a Nazi dive bar on X filled with misogynists and racists, but that's where a lot of the information and action is, and sometimes I think I'm actually trying to get information out there. And then if I go over to Blue Sky, it's a totally different kind of pedantic pain that I go through over there.
Margie and I were having a discussion this morning. I'm theoretically a lawyer, but actually based on your recent work, you probably know more about the law than I do.
Like this.
I'm worried that this is not illegal.
It's not illegal.
Because it's not their body.
Nope.
And instead of Congress asking them to take it down, why don't those same people propose a damn law?
It won't. It wouldn't pass. I mean, because it's a First Amendment. You've got a public person for the most part.
It is not a First Amendment issue.
I think it is.
A fully naked photo of someone without their permission.
If I took a picture, if I drew you naked, Jim, and I sold it at a GBH BPR fan event.
Wow.
Nobody would bid. Is that your point?
No, I'd make a lot of money, but and you could be upset that I was doing it, but you're a public figure. It's my First Amendment right in artistic expression to do that. The children are different, totally different. But the issue here is not, can you do it? It's why are the apps, why are the platforms allowing them to be published? Because you don't have a First Amendment right on X. You don't have a First Amendment right on Facebook. X can say, we're not going to do this. Grok can have some guardrails put on it, and on the app stores, Grok should be 18 plus if a recommendation for children.
The other thing that drives me insane is Section 230 says that they're not liable. You can't sue them for what they...
The platforms are not liable. The people who post the content are.
For example, if I post a lie about you in South End News, if I take a letter to the editor...
I could sue.
And that letter writer writes a lie about Marjorie Egan, Marjorie can sue me and can sue the letter writer. If I take that lie and I post it on X, nothing happens.
And you know what? The idea that they can't deal with this is baloney. They make so much money and have so much ability to hire people. We have let them get away with this. And what's really scary is Donald Trump does not want to regulate AI either.
And listen, the other part
Donald Trump, though, and Biden, for different reasons, were both for reforming Section 230, by the way.
Well,
nothing happened, but they were.
That's another thing I think that why do they get this pass?
Well, they got the pass so they could develop the business.
And I think it's developed.
It's 20 years ago, and obviously no one really knew what they were doing. And look at the difference between why the Mark Zuckerbergs and the Elon Musks were able to be as successful than traditional newspaper publishers or broadcasts is because we have to follow different rules than they had to follow. So they could break all kinds of rules that newspapers and TV stations couldn't. And this is where they got. But back to the Grok AI undressing people, it's not a bug, it's a feature, right? Elon Musk allowed this to burn so that he could drive more people to X to see what was happening. And when you're in the replies, when you're responding to people, it's helping his business. So he doesn't really care if some child is put in a pornographic image that gets repeated all across X as long as people are going to X.
And one last thing. I don't mean to sound like you say people being pedantic and all that, but if you could not get away with all this lying, we would be in a different country. If you could sue for these lies, and I think that's, sooner or later, I hope the government takes this seriously.
Yeah, but you remember the discussion we had an hour ago with Yawu and Adam? I don't think who do you want to be in charge of deciding whether individual statements are lies, Marjorie?
It's the same thing as
do you want to do it?
It's the same thing as newspapers. I don't know why this is so difficult. You write a lie in the South End News, I write a lie in the Boston Herald, you get sued. You go to court. Either you win or you lose. I don't think it's a very difficult thing. The courts will decide.
Okay, we're talking to Sue O'Connell. We'll revisit this at some point. You know, there is a case on trans people in sports before the Supreme Court. I think we know how they're going to rule. I think it's fairly obvious. I don't want to talk about that. Two things, one factual thing and then one political question. Charlie Baker, I think when he testified in front of Congress, said there are 10 trans athletes in all of NCAA sports, which speaks to the brilliance, in my opinion, and the cruelty of the Trump side. I think that ad on which they spent, $170 million, saying he stands for you, Kamala Harris stands for they, them, or whatever the hell they did, had a huge impact. What do the Democrats do in an attempt, in the midterms, in an attempt to, one, show compassion for some of the most vulnerable people in this country, trans people, at the same time that they don't get hoisted on their you-know-what like they did in 2024. How do you split that baby, Sue O'Connell?
I think that if I were advising Democrats on the national stage and in any states or cities where this was an issue, I would tell them to acknowledge the issue in the way that you did, that the number of trans people in the world is less than 1%. So this is a tiny, tiny, tiny issue that, to Charlie Baker's point, those competing in female trans people competing in women's sports on the collegiate competitive elite level, tiny, tiny, tiny amount, and that you can both acknowledge that people have genuine concerns, other players, female players have concerns about this, but when it comes to the day-to-day life of what we have to deal with in this country, it's really not a compelling and driving issue. So therefore, let's talk about the issues, acknowledging this is an issue that we need to discuss, having the people who are involved in it at the table, women, trans women, competitive sports people, doctors, psychologists, all the players, bring them to the table, and then pivot to what the issues are that people really need to be concerned about right now, which is our taking over of Greenland, of Venezuela.
Yeah, but Sue, by the way, in the 2024 elections, the economy was the major voting thing. But the trans ads, in my opinion, had a huge...
But they ignored them because the Democrats ignored the ads. See, this is the part that...
Yeah, but you think that kind of... let's assume they say what you say. I don't mean to belabor this, but it concerns me deeply for all the reasons I mentioned. After you say that, some mother gets in an ad and says, my daughter was the greatest swimmer in America, and she lost to Leah Thomas at Penn. Leah Thomas shouldn't have been in that race. What do you say to that candidate, Jane Doe?
Sure, I would point out that that's a horrendous situation for everybody who was involved in that competition, every single player, even Leah Thomas, everybody, and it's not going to impact your day-to-day life here. When we have this issue, whatever the issue is of the day, that you have to focus on. But they didn't. But the Democrats didn't do that at all. They didn't address it. They just said everybody should be able to compete. Everybody should be able to do this.
Right.
And then they just let it go when they never push back on what happens.
But the problem is, like, what is it? 70 or 80% of Americans think this is unfair, and they'll find another example.
So what do you do? What do you do?
Well, I think people it is a terrible thing that because of 10 athletes in the NCAA or however many are in high school, that the trans movement is so badly hurt by this because they are. I think those people within the movement should think, is this the hill we want to die on for?
Well, listen, I might blow the whole thing up and say, why are we having any competition in children's sports, not talking about the college level, until they're 16 anyway? I mean, why are we not, everybody has different gifts. Jim was tall, a game and no good for him when he played basketball, as we've heard a million times, or football his girth was very, very exciting.
Appreciate that.
But, so we're all unfair. We all have advantages and disadvantages in sports that others don't. But at the same time, I don't think we should be having children compete in sports. I know that's a big blow up.
That's a losing battle.
That's why I'm not president.
Okay, think more about this. We'll return to this next week because it's going to be a big issue again because it worked so well in 2024. Which
is really terrible. It's really terrible that this is so hurt.
I'm just thrilled people care about women's sports suddenly. That's the thing I care most about. Who cared about women's sports and the fairness of it? At my Revere High gym, when we had the used uniforms, we didn't get
new uniforms. Were you an athlete, by the way?
I was a JV'er.
Oh, you were? Okay,
I was a JV'er.
Yeah.
All right,
we had to do like basketball and volleyball in our stupid gym outfits, the color of the Boston Public Radio thing, with little snaps in the front. The boys had all these great outfits.
Yeah,
we had summer outfits, the winter outfits.
But that's okay. Let's worry about this.
We got little gym.
Okay, can we move on to something that we can resolve, in my estimation? I was unaware until I read a thing in the Globe, I think, that the discrimination in rental housing against people with pets, I thought it was on the margins, but apparently, according to Globe, either research or data they cited, only 7% of rental units, I think, either Boston or the state, Marjorie, I hope somebody's looking at it, is available for all kinds of pets.
Yeah.
A little higher percentage for a narrower thing, some ban-specific breeds. I don't know if that's even...
You were in favor of that, Jim.
What? I was, but let's not...
I am in favor of it.
He wants to ban pit bulls.
We don't have to have that discussion.
I've been attacked by a pit bull, the same pit bull twice last year. So I'm
and your dog too?
Let's do this. Okay.
Yeah, that's...
Can we get back to this for a second? We will have that debate again someday.
I got attacked by a pit bull too.
Okay,
going after my dog.
Yeah.
I had to throw myself over
Here
the
we
dog.
go. Okay. The lines are lighting up.
As I was saying, it was a pretty hot topic in the old days.
Yeah, it still is.
In any case, what do we do about? I mean, landlords say some cats totally destroy their stuff.
They do.
Dogs are eating their molding.
They
on
do.
Their whatever. So what's the? The Solomon here.
Yeah,
fix this.
I don't know that I can because I'm a dog owner, as you know, and
Ruby. Ruby's your dog.
My dog.
Sorry,
my kids,
Maud.
Ruby's my kid.
We love Ruby. We love Maud too.
Maud's the dog. We love Maud, and I have a landlord. I'm a renter. I have a landlord who loves pets, and I also, as I said, I'm not a fan of living next to some breeds, and if I were a landlord, and some insurance companies charge you more or don't insure you, give you home insurance or renter's insurance if you have certain breeds, and they do a lot of damage. Just in general, even the best pets do damage to apartments. So I get that this is a challenge for people moving. This is a challenge for people who want to have pets. I also understand it's a challenge for landlords because you are going to redo the apartment usually after they move out, but my dog has indeed chewed the molding on the corner by the door. I mean,
does the landlord know that?
Yeah, she does, but I also paid a hefty pet down payment security deposit on it as well. So, I don't know that I have an answer to this. I think that
I know that you don't.
I
Actually.
don't.
I can tell.
Yeah, because I want to be able to rent with my dog. If I want to move, I want to be able to take my dog. But as someone who owned a house before that I rented, I also don't want some animal. People are so terrible training their dogs, me included, on a regular basis. Do we want to add another, my dog's always going after the poor people next door when we leave the door at the
really
same
nice.
time. So I think that I don't know that there should be a law saying you have to accept pets if you don't want pets. Plus, some people are afraid of pets,
Well,
afraid of dogs, afraid of
low-income
cats.
people who can't afford the fee that you're doing.
Well, then they shouldn't have a dog if they're so low income that they can't afford to pay the deposit.
Let me
How about
review
that?
this.
How about
You're
that for a
totally
conservative Republican
You're
standpoint?
unable to resolve the trans people in sports.
Can't solve that.
You
can't solve
resolve
the dogs.
the pets
Okay,
and
go
rental
ahead.
units thing.
There's got to be one I
Anything
can.
else you can't do?
I don't know what's left.
It seems to me paying a fee, extra fee for the animal makes sense.
If you can afford it.
Yeah.
How much did you pay?
Do you know
What'd
how much?
you pay? What was the fee?
$1,000. I've been there 10 years,
a lot of
so
money.
it's.
Look at you.
But how much
My
does your
little-
dog cost? Like your dog costs.
A
This is
lot.
the other part that I think people don't understand
Yeah.
when they get a pet. My dog, she's going to have her checkup in a month. It's going to be $1,000, right? She ate a sleeve of raisin English muffins 2 years ago. That was $2,000.
Raisins bad for the dog.
How many is that, 6?
Look at poor Zoe. Her cat had one tooth taken out.
It's $1,000. So, if you're going to have a pet, you have to make sure that these are the commitments that you are able to deal with.
I had an 11-pound dog, left my house in shambles. Just
Is
a
that
shambles.
really true, or are you making that
Well,
up?
if the dog is a ball chaser and the ball
Yeah.
goes underneath the
Oh,
couch or the
yeah.
chairs or the sideboard, the whole thing is scratched to
Yeah.
death in
Yeah.
about 6 months.
Yes, Jim.
So let's see if we can resolve this. We only have a couple minutes left. We were going to ask you about the claim. There's one of the 11 questions that may make it on the ballot next year would repeal the recreational marijuana
Yeah.
law. I don't know if anybody supports that. By the way, how many
Wendy
of you people
Wakeman
are going to
does.
vote to repeal recretional marijuana law in Massachusetts?
Anybody
It's on the
wanna
ballot.
repeal it?
Don't
Yeah.
be embarrassed. Anybody?
A bunch of potheads out
Okay,
there.
okay. So I think that's fairly. I'm assuming it's going to get crushed. It's being challenged, which I'm not going to get into today, by defenders of the current law who say they fraudulently collected signatures, lying about what people were signing. That's not my issue. The issue that Marjorie doesn't want to talk about, so I'm going to talk about you. There could be 11 questions on the ballot, and the only reason 11 questions on the ballot is because the legislature doesn't resolve anything.
Yes.
Seriously. What happens here? I mean, my view is there's got to be huge pressure on the legislature, as they can. They're now all before them, to resolve these issues, either to pass the laws or if they don't like them, sit down with the proponents and work out a reasonable compromise that's acceptable
Here's my
to all.
prediction for what's going to happen.
Oh,
I have
good.
a prediction about what's going to happen.
Please.
This transparency issue with Governor Healy, A.G. Campbell,
This is the public records
regarding
thing.
the audit,
yeah.
which they have not done anything about,
No, they have not.
and that got on the ballot, and suddenly we're all like, oh, I don't know if we can do it.
72%
You've got that.
of people voted
You've
for
got
it.
the transparency issue with the governor's office.
Yeah.
You have what I think is a do-nothing state lawmakers up there. I think the House is active, but the Senate does absolutely nothing, right,
Yeah.
for the most part. And I think because we're going to have a competitive Republican primary this year for the governors,
Yeah.
I think that Maura Healey should be concerned that the fact we're going to have maybe 11 ballot questions because the state lawmakers aren't doing anything, because we have a transparency issue, because they have not listened to the will of the people when it comes to the audit. 60-something% of people wanted
71% voted for it. I said 72.
the
71.
auditor to have the power to audit them.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be a major problem for Maura Healey in her reelection effort. And to that question, it might be an opening for the Republicans. The unenrolled people, of which in Massachusetts make up the majority of voters,
yeah.
that they may likely sway. We may get another Republican governor because of the transparency, the number of questions that we have in order to get anything done at the State House.
Have you interviewed the 3 guys who are running for the
I
Republican
haven't, but Matt
nomination?
Pritchard has. Matt has.
You know, Jamie, we got to start getting the 3
Yeah.
Republicans who are running for the
You
nomination.
know what's
in.
interesting, though? How many people, I'm always surprised when we have Diana DiZoglio on, or even the Attorney General talking about this issue of the transparency. We get swamped with text messages. People are strangely, I think, as oftentimes things going on at the State House, people don't really care. That one really gets.
Well, you know why?
everybody.
My analysis, beyond the fact that we mostly have a do-nothing legislature, and by the way, there's some leaders of the House, I don't know them, but the Ways and Means chair, who's going to be the next speaker, people say very good things about Aaron.
Fine. Aaron Michalowicz, yeah.
The speaker is an arrogant guy who really treats people like they shouldn't even be allowed to be part of the Democratic
God forbid we should ask him a question.
Process. I think the reason, even if you didn't care about the content of the ballot question to begin with, most people have contempt for the legislature, and I think even more so, it's the law that's being flagrantly violated. And that would upset me even if I didn't support the law.
I didn't support the law, but I support.
You voted no?
I voted no, and but I think that they should enact the law because
that's a grown-up position.
And the other part of this is we tell people all the time: you want to make change, vote.
Yeah.
You want to make change, vote. And then we have this. And let me just tell you, 55% is an overwhelming majority. This passed almost. I would say it would be 100%, right? Yeah. And what did they do? Nothing. And now they're arguing, we'll say pedantic again, about the pedantic aspects of whether it should have been on the ballot or not, or, all of that. And it's enraging to people that they voted for something. And again, I was against it, but I'm enraged that they haven't enacted it.
You know what really killed me when you're speaking of the House Speaker, Marino, I know we're almost out of time. Mariano, excuse me, Marino, sorry. Mariano, that a lot of people are upset with ICE agents wearing masks, and he was asked about that. Yeah. This is like a big issue all across the country, and he said something like, I don't think this is the time to be talking about this issue. You think to yourself, well, if this isn't the times, what is it?
Well, I mean, in fairness, you didn't say what the second half of the thing was.
That?
He said, let's wait till most of the population is in jail.
And then we'll talk about it.
Then we can, and I think that's a fair.
Yeah.
So, Sue, do you have anything more to say? We got to move on here.
No, that's it. I just think that this is going to be a very. I also think that the robust Republican primary for governor is going to hurt Seth Moulton in his primary
challenge. Why? Less attention?
No, because a lot of people who are
Seth is running against
Ed Markey in a Democratic primary, and because we have so many unenrolled people, the more moderate people in the unenrolled are going to vote in the Republican, either to send a message
or
because
a genius. Do you know
I am, and so it's going to hurt Moulton in his effort to beat Markey. If Ayanna Pressley had gotten in, it actually might have helped her, because people would have voted for her and not for Markey. But
who is the Republican running for Senate?
Not Senate, governor.
No, the governor.
Senate is Deaton. We've had Deaton on the show.
Markey, you're talking about.
But I'm just talking about the primary.
No, because an independent, when you're an unenrolled,
you can vote
in either primary. But if you pick a Republican ballot to vote in the primary for governor, you can't pick a Democratic ballot to vote in the primary for the Senate race with Markey and Seth Moulton.
So when Jim says this is going to hurt Moulton later,
I said that?
I said it first. Okay, I just want to put that on record.
Actually, I am going to use that, and I am not going to give you credit.
Okay.
Sue Collins, great to see you as always.
Good to see you
too.
Happy New Year.
I'm so confused. Okay, we're speaking with local woman Sue O'Connell, co-publisher of South End News and Bay Windows, and news influencer at NBC 10 Boston, and great Instagrammer. I don't know what that means either, but I know she's doing the Instagram thing, which I'm a big follower of. I'm an influencee. I listen.
You are.
Yes, I watch your stuff, and so I'm influenced by you. Coming up after this quick break, we're going to open the lines to talk about what's your problem? We're going to talk about backseat drivers and passenger princesses. It's sort of a double a-hole week for all of you who complained about yesterday's segment. You are welcome. We're going to talk about backseat drivers, basically, is what we're doing up next. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Arun Roth. Today on GBH's All Things Considered, it's been a rough flu season in Massachusetts, but new data suggests the situation could be improving. And it's been a rough week in the news. Let us help you reset for the weekend with this week's Joy Beat, a youth mentoring program that provides connection amid growing concerns about boys' loneliness. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Pro Arte Chamber Orchestra, presenting A Musical Menagerie, a family concert co-presented by the Music Performance Trust Fund, January 18th at 3 at Newton War Memorial Auditorium. Reservations at proarte.org. and CrowdStreet, a platform providing individual investors direct access to private equity, private credit, and real estate. Learn more at crowdstreet.com.
Welcome back to BPR. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan, live from the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Today we're ending the show with a call out to all the backseat drivers and passenger princes and princesses out there. Why is it so hard to just give up control when you're not actually driving the car? Our prompt, of course, comes from Reddit. You're sort of getting, as Marjorie said, a double dose, not literal, well, sort of, an Am I the A-hole this week, and you're welcome for that. The poster writes, I love my wife with all my heart, but she is not good at sitting shotgun. She makes huge reactions to any change in traffic, grabbing the handle, putting her hand on the dash, gasping, telling me to watch out. His solution, he made her sit in the back seat so she can't distract him with her anxiety. So give us a call. I mean, I really didn't want this as an a-hole thing. Is he a jerk, or should his wife just give up control and be a good-natured passenger when she's not driving the car herself? And more broadly, how do you handle the bad drivers in your life? I'll tell you about that in a minute. Do you keep your mouth shut when a passenger, or do you have an obligation, you do, to speak up about the injustice of their terrible automobile operation? The number is 877-301-897. And do me a favor, by the way, because I'm in a fairly good mood. Don't send us texts like yesterday. Why are you discussing something this frivolous when the world is falling apart? 2.5 hours of the world falling apart most days is enough for me, and 20 minutes of the world is not falling apart or something else is what we're going to do here, and if not, what can I tell you? So what's your position on backseat drivers, actually in the front seat in this case? What's your position on that? You must hate it.
Well, I do get upset when people are driving too fast or recklessly or tailgating.
Do you ever say anything to them?
I have, but I should not.
Why are you choosing your words so carefully?
Because
Somebody we all know?
I'm kind of an aggressive driver.
Okay, let me take over here, if I may.
Okay.
Marjorie's the worst driver I've ever driven with. And let me just say, it is terrifying to be in her car.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Okay.
I don't do it that often for fairly obvious reasons. She, one, drives too fast, by far.
By far,
Two,
okay.
she is, what's that thing when you get too close to somebody's bumper?
You say I'm a tailgater, which is, I am not a tailgater.
You are the worst tailgater I've ever seen.
You're supposed to leave a car length between, every 10 miles. Like if you're going 60 miles an hour, you should have 6 car lengths between you and the car in front of you. I learned that in driver's ed school.
Yeah, let me tell you something. Marjorie's 6 car lengths is if there's 6 little smart cars. Now let me finish this thing, if I may. I have, when I've driven with you, I must say, I have occasionally given you advice that you should have taken about slowing down, not getting so close to the car in front of you. Now, in all fairness, only person who is what's the word I should use, as participatory when they're a passenger with someone else, that would be me when you're driving. My younger daughter cannot stop telling me what a horrible driver I am, which I am not. I'm the most careful, speed limit obeying driver who has ever lived. Jamie, stay out of this,
Let me just tell you 2 quick stories. I remember leaving here one day and going on to the Mass Pike, and we're going back, I don't know where we're going, maybe we're going to the station.
Yeah.
And there are you in your Tesla, There's like a line of traffic behind you because you're the only person in the Mass Pike that's going 55 miles an hour, which is very dangerous because nobody goes 55 miles an hour. That's one thing. And you talk about me as a tailgater. You have had 2 or 3 tailgating accidents, Jim, that you caused injuries. Isn't that true?
I had a couple of rear-end collisions. I did.
So
do you remember when I had the rear-end collision? I rear-ended this woman on Melnia Cass Boulevard.
Yeah, you did it 93 South, too.
Maybe I did. It was 93 North. But
93 North, okay.
But in any case.
The highway.
And I settled with a woman on the spot, on the street there, and agreed to pay something because I may have been at fault. I'm not sure. Do you remember what that woman did to make sure she got the money?
Did she show up at the station?
She called our radio show 20 minutes later to say, I'm the guy that Jim rear-ended. That's not really the point. The point is that there are certain circumstances where I think it's an obligation on the part of the person in the passenger seat to at least offer guidance to the person who is driving. In other settings, if you're a nervous Nelly, then probably you should keep it to yourself.
Remember the story about our former governor and his late wife, Katie Dukakis, on Storrow Drive? Dukakis was in the front seat and Kitty was in the back seat. Remember?
I do.
Yeah, she had to drive in the back seat. Probably she was driving him nuts. One of our texters says, the woman that's complaining about her husband's driving should just slip a lorazepam in her drink before they get in the car.
Okay, so here's some notes before we get to your calls on this from two of our colleagues. Jamie writes, when the library studio fails, as it often does, we all have to rush back to the Brighton studio. The rest of us can get there in 12 to 14 minutes.
That's so
Jim,
true.
It takes him 25 minutes to get there.
That's right.
And says, I was about to write the same thing. Jim's always the capital letters last to arrive, despite being the only capital letters one to park immediately in front.
This is what I mean.
I do have the best parking spot at GBH.
He's going 55 miles an hour in the mass bike. And you know what was incredible, Jim?
No, I don't really.
For about the first 5 years we were here, he didn't even know you could take the mass pike.
I didn't.
He's driving down Commonwealth Avenue.
You're a little defensive,
it took him like about 45 minutes.
Okay, this
to
is
get
really
to
not the issue. Now, can I say one last thing before we take the calls?
You know, you want to go with the
issue.
flow of traffic. That's what you want to do, with the flow of traffic. You don't want to be the person that's causing road rage because everybody's stuck behind you. And you're driving in the passing lane on top of it.
The callers would like to, I do not. The callers would like to participate, so I want to say one last thing. I have a question for you.
All right, yep.
On that stretch of road that you're discussing, excuse me, look at me, please.
Massachusetts Turnpike?
What is the speed limit?
It is 55.
And what was I driving?
55.
Amen.
Nobody
I will stop.
drives 55 except for you and Michael Dukakis and somebody's 90-year-old grandmother who probably shouldn't be driving at all.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
I am a law-abiding
okay.
patriot, and then there's Marjorie Egan.
All right.
Maddie
from Watertown. Thank you for calling.
Oh, hi. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I have to say my father paid someone $50 when he hit the person at Fresh Pond Rotary, so that's not unusual.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I told my mother that if her reaction could cause me to have an accident.
What do you mean?
Even because people will cut you off. And my mother, like, you're going to make me hit. I realize the person's cutting me off.
I've done that with Marjorie.
Right.
Maddie, have you ever driven with Marjorie?
I am a good driver.
Only on the radio.
Only on the radio. Well, I mean, I have done what your mother has done, and I have to be honest, and I've done it because the circumstances merited it. So, Maddie, thank you for the call. By the way, an anonymous texter has a brilliant idea.
Yep.
This is easy to resolve. Jim should do what Mitt Romney did to his dog. Put it on the roof.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Which is what he did. Seamus was the name of the dog.
Paul from Fort Lauderdale says, put her in the trunk. That might work out even better.
Do people know, by the way, of a certain age, that literally Romney and the family go on a trip.
That's right.
They put a dog on the roof of the car. Seamus was the name of the dog.
Seamus. I think it was an Irish setter.
If I may say, pooped all over the roof.
Yeah.
And what did he do?
He pulled into a gas station, got a hose, cleaned off the car, and put the dog back on the roof. That was animal abuse. A texter wants to know, Jim, what happened to belly button lint? Wasn't that supposed to be the topic today?
No, we're doing a special on belly button lint. We're doing a 3-hour special. We'll be playing that sometime next week. Louise in Bedford, we're talking about backseat driving, the pros and cons. Hi, Louise.
Hi, Jim, Marjorie. To me, this is very simple. The wife should just drive.
The wife should just what?
The wife should just drive.
Well, actually, he proposed that, but she doesn't. I should have mentioned that. The only reason that wasn't the solution is because he says, or she admits, that she doesn't like to drive on the highway or something. So it was either the passenger seat or the back seat. Those were the only options. But otherwise, Louise, that was a very Solomonic choice on your part. Thank you very much for the call. We appreciate it.
A lot of wives are complaining about their husband's road rage. Why is it that men have more road rage than women? I think generally that's true. I think it is true.
You think it is
Yeah,
true?
I absolutely do.
Do you ever yell at anybody?
No. What I usually do when they toot at me or middle finger salute kind of thing, I smile and wave.
Oh, that's
good.
I like that.
That really gets them going. Yeah. They really hate that. They don't like that.
And I have to admit, by the way, while I am a much better driver than Marjorie, this is also true. Mm-hmm. If somebody cut me off, let's say, between downtown Boston and Cambridge, Cambridge, the Alston exit, if they cut me off, I would probably follow them to Cleveland if I needed to respond to. And it's not a healthy behavior. I'm not proud of it.
It's not a healthy behavior. Well, that's the thing. If someone cuts you off, you become really upset about it.
It's horrible.
And it's kind of a stupid thing to get upset about.
Which is really not our topic.
Isn't it?
Did you ever answer the question? Do you ever do this when you're riding with someone else driving? Do you give them advice?
I have, yes, I have.
And so
they don't like it.
I understand that.
Yeah, they don't like it because they say, "What are you talking about? You're
the worst driver who ever lived."
You drive like a maniac.
She is.
I don't drive like a maniac,
You're a
actually.
horrible driver.
But I may be a little aggressive. Infrequent driver here, just turning on that.
This is Nicole.
Oh, that's Nicole.
Yeah.
Turning on the light using a flashlight really that bad? My parents acted like I was planning a murder, says Nicole, one of our producers. Yeah, a lot of times people don't like to have the light in the back of the car if somebody's like in the back seat. But a lot of people seem to be driving in the back seat. Have you noticed a lot of these people just drive in the back seat?
Okay. Let's go to Richard in Medfield. You're next. We're talking about backseat drivers, sort of. Hello there, Richard. Welcome.
Hey, how are you doing today?
Never better.
My observation is this.
Yeah.
Regarding following 3-second rule. You take a point and the car in front of you passes it, you should be 3 seconds behind them. That translates much easier into the 1 car length per 10 miles.
But I thought it's a function of how fast you're going. Isn't that the issue, Richard?
Well, it's going to be the math works out the same way.
Yeah.
But that's not important.
Yeah.
As far as my driving, I accept my limitations. My wife drives when we're in the car together. I navigate. It's become increasingly irrelevant as all the GPS stuff comes in. But it's a compromise that we worked out 50 years ago.
Richard,
and we're both much happier that way.
I like that. But before you leave, Richard, since you sound like a fairly smart caller, let me run this by you. Occasionally when I've driven with Marjorie, we've been behind somebody who in the car in front of it, a book. If I am able to read the book along with the person in the car in front of us, is that not too close?
Okay. That is another...
Now, that's bad.
Yeah.
But it's not as bad as having the guy in front of you shaving while he's driving.
That's a very good point.
Oh, you do see that.
Richard,
you see people,
thank you for the call.
especially at red lights. I mean, everybody's on their phone now, which is really terrible. How many times do you have to toot at somebody at the red light because they're on their phone? But the ones that kill me, which I drive down Commonwealth Avenue and Beacon Street, you see people putting on their makeup in the car.
You've never done that, have you?
I've never done that, no, of course. Now, listen to this. This is a very diplomatic answer.
Please.
Who is the a-hole? It's so obvious. Best advice ever received. With passengers, drive for their comfort. When alone, do as you wish. My former husband did not agree to do this.
Wait, what is that again? What is the point of that?
With passengers,
passengers,
drive for their comfort.
Oh, I see.
When alone, do as you wish. Isn't that a diplomatic answer?
No, that's a very nice answer.
I like that very much.
Okay, good. John in the car, what's your deal? Hi, John.
Hello.
Hello.
My daughter had just gotten her driver's license.
Yeah.
Perhaps for a week.
Yeah.
And I was driving with her. She was driving. And somebody cut us off at a stop sign.
Mm-hmm.
She immediately delivered more words than I even learned in the Army. and then looked over at me kind of sheepishly. And I said, no, it's okay. I was in the Army. I know those words. And she said, it's not that. She said, I knew I was going to turn into mom someday. I didn't think it would be this soon.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one, John. That's a very good one.
John, thank you. Appreciate your call.
Here's a texter who says, anyone in the vehicle not driving should be required to ride blindfolded. Otherwise, they can take public transportation and try telling those T operators how to drive.
Is that, I never thought to ask you, have any of your kids ever echoed the same comments? Tell the truth about your driving that I've
I don't
made?
think I drive that way with my children in the car.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting?
It's only you, Jim.
That really is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's a little
I'm
piece
trying
of
to set
truth
an
there.
example with the children in the car, or you got to do it with the kids in the car.
Got it.
Okay.
How about
Joe in Boxborough? Hi, Joe.
Hey, Joe. Welcome. Joe, say something.
Whoops.
Okay, Joe, nice to speak to you. 877, well, we have a lot of calls. Mike in Needham. Hello, Mike. What's up?
Hey, how you doing?
We're good.
So I'm on spot on with the gentleman who originally had the question about the wife and the reaction.
Yeah.
And she totally does it to me. But what I found over time is that I have done it to her as well. What really gets to me is her reaction compared to mine. When I try and grin and bear it, and I say one word to her, about her driving, and all hell breaks loose. So that's really what I'm more concerned about.
So she criticizes you, but you can't criticize her.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like in most things.
Yeah.
Like in most things.
So who drives, Mike, when you're going on a long trip then?
I do.
Okay, and you just put up with it?
Yeah, well, and I try, yeah, exactly. Did you
hear this guy a minute ago that talked about how he worked things out with his partner? They made a compromise. Can you not do that, or that's not happening?
No, I mean, it's not that bad as it is. It's just, I try and listen to what her concerns are and say, okay, well, let's make this work.
Oh,
there you go.
Well, that is very
Another
healthy.
diplomatic husband.
Thank you, Mike. That's beautiful.
Okay, a texter says, Marjorie is in the right on this. Keeping with the flow of traffic is not only safe, but economical. Those behind Jim are forced to brake, switch lanes, accelerate, waste precious time, giving him the finger and regaining their momentum.
Yeah.
They're also doing a slow road rage kind of thing. There's nothing worse than getting stuck behind somebody in the passing lane who won't move over.
Can I tell you something? Because you have, through the years, you have ruined my reputation, such as it is. I do not drive.
Yes, you do.
No, I do not.
Yes, you do.
I do not drive in the passing lane.
Like 20 years ago, when we used to work in Dorchester, driving home, you were in the Mass Pike, I was in the Mass Pike. I left like a long time after you did. It was the same thing. I flew by this car, and you know how I knew it was you? Because you always, in the summertime, you always have your arm out the window.
I did.
And I flew by you, and you're over there in the middle lane. You're not even in the right-hand lane. You're over there in the middle lane, driving like 50 miles an hour.
I remember that.
Like,
that was the one time I did that. I do remember that day.
Okay.
I know, in all seriousness, I drive in the lane where, now it's not slow
And it's
drivers,
all-
excuse me. It is people who are driving the speed limit are driving. That'd be me.
And when we've had these emergency situations here where the equipment falls apart, we're down here
Do
at
I
the
get
library.
back to the show?
No, as Jamie just pointed out.
And Zoe.
There's like 5 of us, right? We're all driving back to the station.
Am I on the air when we go on the air?
Everybody gets back about 15 minutes before.
Well, and you know why? You know why? The difference is
so
I was
hysterical.
able to stop for 6 McNuggets
Oh,
on the
okay.
way.
Okay.
And you were not.
Yeah. It took a while, as I said, for Jim to realize that the Mass Pike is the way to get to
Why do you find that
WGB.
funny?
I just think it's bizarre. Everybody has Waze or Google Maps or something that it took you 5 years.
It wasn't
I
5
think,
years.
why?
It was like 3 years.
Where is he? What is he doing? And then
3 years.
I finally realized
3 years.
he's going down Storrow Drive.
He's trying to save $1.25. Let's go to Bridget in Somerville. What's
Bridget,
your deal?
hi, Bridget.
Hello.
Hi, I've called 3 or 4 times now.
Great.
Oh, great.
I just wanted to say, driving around Somerville, Cambridge, Greater Boston, there are so many hazards of cars, pedestrians, strollers, bikes, things with one wheel that seem to be hovering. And I appreciate when any pedestrian tells me, watch out, watch out, watch out.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, that's essentially
Or
what
any passenger, I mean.
Well, I know you meant a passenger, which is exactly what I do with Marjorie. So you think that's a reasonable behavior is what you're saying, correct?
I mean, it's better than hitting someone, right?
Exactly my point. Bridget, that was a brilliant call. Thank you. Call us again soon.
Okay, here's a
Appreciate
texter. Tell Jim I'm going 82 miles an hour with the flow of traffic right now down Route 24. He would get crushed. So it raises the question, how is this person texting at 82 miles an hour?
That's a very good point.
In any case, this texter says Jim would get crushed if he were out here now. I think he needs a backseat driver to tell him to get going.
Okay, let's do one. Oh, we did Joe. Oh, did we do Joe from Boxborough? I can't remember. Did we get him? We did do him. Oh, Joe. We didn't. You didn't answer, and now you are. Hello, or something. I don't know. Hello, Joe. What? Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, you hear me? First time,
do.
long time.
We love you. Thank you. Hello.
So, so I love you too. Never driven with Marjorie, but I will say the only place I've seen her in public was at an auto body shop in Alston. So that might say something.
Yeah.
I'm involved with my town, so I do follow my speed limit. Even when it's 25 miles per hour, I'll have a line of cars behind me, and if anyone asks me, I say, go to town meeting if you want a different speed limit.
Joe, you are a fabulous
Well, you
last
do
caller.
raise a good point, though. Did you say you were a town official? So you kind of got to...
No, town meeting.
Oh, well, it doesn't matter. Town meeting, that's still a town official. So you got to behave yourself, Joe, right? You can't be pulled over by the Boxborough
Yeah,
cops.
I mean, you know, I just think if you want a different speed limit, you go do something about it the diplomatic way, you know?
Yo, Joe, thank you, because you reminded me of 2 things I'll close this segment with. Just 2 short questions, Marjorie. Between you and me, who used to drive around with no rear bumper? You or me? I'm just asking. Who was it?
I did lose my rear
who
bumper.
used to drive around?
It was a 12-year-old car.
Who used to drive around in their minivan with no rear window?
That was only briefly.
Okay. Thank you.
That
We're
was
done.
only briefly.
We are done.
Jim, A texter says he understands your issue. It is hard to drive sitting on Harriet Heinemann's lap.
Okay, fine. We almost made it through the whole show. Hey, Jared.
I
how
have
are you?
insight here.
Nice. No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I do. Because I remember driving up 495 one day, and I recognized your car. And it was driving so slowly that it had time for me to drive up alongside you, look and make sure it was you, for me to wave, but you were also driving just like this. And so you didn't even, I waved, I honked, nothing. You didn't even look.
He's like an old lady.
And then I
He's
left
like
him in the dust.
Somebody's grandmother.
Jamie, what's the number for HR?
And what is
Can you text me the number?
These are facts.
What is the point of having a Tesla if you're just going to drive like an old lady?
Right.
You're like, I remember I had the maiden aunts, they were so
Jamie
old.
just wrote, Jim's a Q-tip.
Jim's a Q-tip. He is
People
a
know what a
Q-tip.
Q-tip is?
The Q-tip.
A Q-tip
Little
is an old
tufts.
person who is shrunk, and they're driving, and all you can see from
Little
behind
tuft.
is a little tuft of blue hair. Oops,
Yeah.
sorry, he's always a Q-tip
Little
too.
tuft of white hair. Yeah, okay.
What are you, what kind of, are you a nervous, what's
Oh,
your...
no, I do not drive fast.
You do drive fast?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what if you're in a car, like if you're ever driven with her?
Oh, no. Have we? Yes, once.
I don't know.
And how
Maybe
how
not.
It was
terrifying
wonderful.
was that
Wonderful.
experience?
It was not bad.
Not bad. You see, there you
I
go.
can't stand being in a car with a slow driver because I just want to step on
Yeah,
it.
it is really bizarre. There's something wrong there. I don't know what it is, but
Okay,
there's something.
let's move on.
It's a screw.
One of us had a bumper. One of us had a rear view window.
Yeah.
I rest my
And one
case.
of us had 3 rear-end disasters. I believe there were some wrists broken in those incidents.
I broke my wrist. She didn't break. I broke my wrist.
Jim leaves to get here for the show on Sunday night
God.
and still barely makes it here on time.
Okay, that's actually a fairly good one. Not that good, but fairly good. What are you doing on the show there?
We're going to spend about 45 minutes today talking about heated rivalry.
Oh!
Have you both seen heated rivalry?
No, but I've heard about it. About the gay hockey players in Canada. In Russia. In Russia.
One Russian.
Oh, one Russian.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about heated rivalry. We're going
It's
to talk
supposed to be
about
great,
It's
isn't
a
it?
great show.
Okay,
The British Museum is hiring a treasure hunter. So if you're looking for a job, that's a job for you. And then Jim Beam stopping production on some of its products, including Jim Beam this year.
Yeah, is that tariffs or is that people aren't drinking as much as they used to?
It's kind of all of the above,
All
but
the
having a
above.
huge impact. Yeah.
Did either of you see the 60 Minutes Puff show around Christmas where they did 3 hours on drinking, essentially? And they had a guy who makes almost all the barrels in the world for liquor. It was pretty fascinating. I mean, a light thing, but it was Christmas, so it was okay. All right, we'll be listening to you.
I missed that, Jim, because I was stuck behind you on the mass
Oh,
bike.
God, that is so funny. That is look at me laughing. I mean, I am doubled over.
Okay. Thank
you
you very
later.
much for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. You can keep up with us way of our podcast and check out our TikTok page. Monday, we're going to be joined by the former ambassador to Denmark, Rufus Gifford. We're going to talk all about Greenland with him.
Well, he was also chief of protocol for Joe Biden, so
That's
that'll
right.
be an interesting discussion.
Our monthly transit panel with Chris Dempsey and Bill Strauss, Boston Medical Center's Dr. Catherine Gergen-Barnett to take your medical questions, and Princeton's Khalil Gibran Mohammed. We want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, our engineer John McClaw Parker, our executive producer Jane Bologna, our BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Patrick Lally, Bill Francis, Juan Jose Cadena, our host of the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. Stay tuned to Jared and the Culture Show. They're going to talk about this great new TV show all about these hockey players, starting immediately after us on 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library. Good luck getting home today, Jim. I hope
That's
everything
fun.
goes well.
No, it's great. I'm Jim Browdy.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you can tune in again and have a great weekend.
See ya.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Atlantic Design Center by Eldridge Lumber and Hardware, committed to helping you achieve your vision for a new kitchen or bathroom and guiding you from design to completion with showrooms in York and Portland, Maine. AtlanticDesignCTR.com. Cozy up with a blanket, grab some hot tea, and imagine yourself living in the picturesque Yorkshire Dales. Now, stop imagining and get ready to catch the season premiere of All Creatures Great and Small. Sunday at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Culture Show news desk, I'm Henry Santoro. The banjo-playing virtuoso Bela Fleck is among the latest to cancel his performances scheduled for next month at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. Fleck, who has won 18 Grammy Awards, has canceled not one, not two, but 3 engagements with the National Symphony Orchestra at the Kennedy Center. He says he decided to cancel because of the Trump politics involved at an institution where the focus should be on the music. Someone else who canceled his performance at the Kennedy Center is Boston rocker Peter Wolf. Wolf canceled his Kennedy Center performance as soon as he heard President Trump took over the venue. But fear not, Peter Wolf is a very busy 2026, adding new concerts at new venues almost daily. Elsewhere in the world of music, Elvis Presley in Concert is a 2025 documentary film about Elvis, directed by Baz Luhrmann.
Well, I think the most important thing is the inspiration that I got from a live audience. I was missing that.
The film is Luhrmann's follow-up to his 2022 biographical film Elvis and had its first advance U.S. screenings at Presley's former mansion Graceland last night. Last night would have been Elvis's 91st birthday. Look for it exclusively in IMAX theaters beginning on February 20th. That's this edition of the GBH News Weekly Friday Afternoon Culture Cast. I'm Henry Santoro. Next up, The Culture Show with my friend and yours, Jared Bowen, live at the Boston Public Library.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show. Coming up today, Heated Rivalry. We look at the buzzy hockey drama where secret love passes between two pros locked in a steamy enemies-to-lovers game. With sizzling chemistry and emotional body checks, this hot romance skates past cliches and scores big. Then after a long hiatus, BTS reunites and reignites global fandom with one of the most anticipated comebacks in pop music. And Adventurers Wanted. The British Museum is recruiting a modern-day Indiana Jones to track down stolen artifacts, turning a real security scandal into a globe-trotting recovery mission. Plus, Jim Beam puts Bourbon on ice, pausing production at its main Kentucky distillery amid slowing demand and a market reset. While north of the border, Ontario Premier Doug Ford is escalating the whiskey wars, threatening to dethrone Crown Royal by pulling it from stores after its bottling plant closure. We take on all this and more right now on our Arts and Culture Week in Review.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Welcome to The Culture Show on 89.7 GBH and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. I'm Jared Bowen.
I'm Callie Crossley.
And I'm Edgar B. Herwick III.
We're going over the top arts and culture headlines, starting with Heated Rivalry, the show that has exploded in popularity and fandom, all the hotter for its subject matter, a slow burn romance between two professional hockey players that plays out from their pre-rookie year all the way through to their eventual league stardom. The only problem with the show? How will fans adjust to the year-plus wait before we meet Shane Hollander and Ilya Rozanov again? So this has just, since the last time we were on the air, this show has overtaken everything. So Edgar, how should we process this? How should we move through it?
I think we're going to take this blow by blow and sort of talk through what happens in this show.
I think for people who haven't seen this show before, this is really getting a lot of attention because it's about two men who, again, meet in their pre-rookie year. It's based on a series of books called Game Changers by Rachel Reed, a Canadian author. It was turned into this TV series by a Canadian streaming service, then HBO picked it up, and people have just galvanized around it. And so it's very explicit enough that when I was watching it at home over the holiday break, I thought, should I just be drawing the curtains right now? What will people think I'm watching if they're peeping in? Because I will also say that I had this great purity to it in that I watched it right before it took this explosive arc. So I went into it not knowing anything. And what surfaced for me was here is a story about two gay men who find each other and over this long period fall in love. And there's no trauma involved. There's no torture porn involved here. But you have two men who are falling in love with each other, with the person that each of them is. And I think that is largely what's driving so much of this success.
Well, what's also driving the success is that this is a romance. And so many people scrunch up their nose and faces when you say romance because people don't believe that that's, something that's appreciated by large numbers of people. Driving the viewership are women, by the way. Let me give you the figures on romance. 1.44 billion in revenue. 23% of fiction is romance.
Yeah.
Romance supports all the rest of the genres. And I like all the rest of the genres, but I love some romance.
Yeah.
This has all the tropes. We have opposites attract. We have slow burn, and we have enemies to lovers. If you are a romance fan, you know what I'm talking about, and it's all there.
And Kelly, you're way more read into the world of romance than I am. But in talking to some friends, I understand there is a whole subgenre in the romance world of hockey romance in particular.
Yes, there is.
I guess oftentimes it is like heterosexual couples. It's like hockey player and like figure skater.
Yes.
But what's up with that? That's kind of amazing.
Well, the hockey stories have been out there for a long time with heterosexual couples. So what makes this interesting, and by the way, written by a woman who knows romance. I just want to point that out.
Well, men know romance too.
Yeah, so I just think it's really interesting that there are many, as are all modern romances now, that are good. And there are some that are not good.
Yeah.
But the ones that are good are not just, I look at him, he looks, I look at him, we look together, we burn for each other, and that's it.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of layered issues here. When you talk about people, those two people beginning to love each other for themselves, they got a lot of stuff going on. And underpinning all of this, which was Rachel Reed's purpose, is all of the issues about being closeted, particularly in a sport that is as oftentimes looked at from an observational stance as toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
So what is it like? And then the heated rivalry title, of course, we got the two people on opposite teams.
Yeah.
So that right away is adds
like
to the
two
tension.
great young players of their generation.
Well,
It's great.
Before we get to you, Edgar, to give people a sense who either want to revisit this or maybe hearing it for the first time, here's Hudson Williams as Shane Hollander flirting with his arch rival, at least on the ice, Ilya Rozanov, played by Connor Story.
When did your English get so good? I read the New Yorker now. Really? No, the New Yorker is boring. My dad loves it. Ah, so being boring is genetic. Wow. Genetic.
Well, and it sounds like it is boring, but this is why it's so captivating, because they're having real conversations. You can imagine sitting there with your own partner, sitting on the sofa, or just having a conversation as you're getting into the car together, and it's so naturalistic.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that reads as real to a certain extent is the dialogue here, especially between these two main characters. Neither of them are particularly verbose. Neither of them are they're not using big words. It's not clever dialogue. It does strike you as very real. They're both pretty taciturn. There's not a lot.
If I may say, it sounds male to me.
It sounds male. It sounds typically male, sport male kind of stuff. I think the other interesting thing is the fact that they are, because this is such a long length of time, they have enough moments between the two of them that is all we're seeing for the most part. You get a little bit of context of them outside of their interactions with each other, but I think it does a really neat job of focusing on this idea that all of this time is passing oftentimes between their interactions, but you're really seeing their interactions. So each time they come back together, a number of things have happened in their lives, and you see what about their thing has remained the same, and also how it's developing over time. It's a neat narrative construction.
Well, let's introduce one other element here, which of course is the hockey stick in the room here about the support for this series about two gay men, but this is also speaking to some of the content of the show. And here is actor Francois Arnault as Scott Hunter, one other couple that's featured in the show, and he's talking to his love interest, Kip, played by Robbie GK.
And I can't come out, like, not right now. Too many people depend on me for too much, and it would f everything up. And so I just thought I would, I don't know, wait, I guess. Yeah, wait till hockey was over. But it's just, I want you so bad. So bad. And I know that you barely know me, so why would you even consider something this probably up? Like, I know I'm up, I get it. I'm not pretending I'm not, but I really, really like you. And I want you to stay. So I'm asking for what I want.
So this is a major confession by this character who's realizing that as a professional sports player, especially a professional hockey player, because in real life there has never been a player who is out playing while they're in their career, acknowledging that this is the life that he has to live. So there's that element to this, what this is eliciting from people in sports, and the Stars have had, they've said that professional athletes have reached out to them about being closeted right now here in 2026. So they become this sort of clearinghouse for that. But also the fact that this show is so popular in this moment where we've been talking about all of the anti-DEI initiatives underway in this country. And of course, this is a Canadian piece that has been imported. But there is such popularity for the content.
Well, to follow up on what you said about the real peopleness of this and that really poignant speech, because the guy who's his partner, or who he would like to be his partner in this, that episode 3 is so
It's
really moving.
Really moving.
That you see the pain going on because this guy feels like he can't say and can't do, and yet he wants to live his life. So I imagine all the people coming to this show who haven't thought about a lot of these issues and how it really impacts folk. And here it is, I think, acted out beautifully and explained and written beautifully for people to see. And by the way, we're not giving anything away, but stuff doesn't always, usually romance at the very end, there's 6 episodes, is happily ever after, but there's a lot of up and downs in this series.
But not so much so, and I want to stress that, because I think that's very important, because typically when we see a lot of these stories, Brokeback Mountain, for example, this is the element that has to be introduced, and that is not a pervasive element here, which is nice and refreshing to see.
I do think we can't leave this discussion without talking about, one of the reasons this is popular is like the sort of the look and feel of some of the scenes in this, let's say the sexy stuff, is crazy. It is crazy explicit, and it is a massive achievement, especially I feel like it is a technical massive achievement. I imagine that the directors and the camera people sort of have essentially like a beautiful mind board to like construct the angles that they construct on this, to be able to show what they are showing. It is jaw-dropping.
Well, that and having very athletic thighs that can block a lot.
Yeah, they're nice and thick.
What I would even say, because of the way those characters are built, because they look like athletes, that scene that early on, that scene in the shower where nobody's touched anybody, people are just looking, I'll note there's no soap that I could see. There was just a lot of standing around under the water.
No. Callie, real men don't use soap.
I was like, what's going on? There's no soap here. Anyway, just to say, there's a lot of, as you say, well choreographed.
There's a lot of flesh.
I am rarely rendered speechless, but I don't know what to do after that soap comment. I don't even think I understand the soap comment. But anyway, we'll move from hockey arenas now to Hawkins, Indiana, because fandom is in full force. The climactic series finale of Stranger Things sent fans, why can't there be, why is there supposed to be soap? Why are you supposed to see soap?
Because you're in the shower. You're trying to get clean.
They were so clean, you didn't see the soap.
No, they were getting in the shower to get clean, one thought, but then I'm just noting.
Maybe that's not why they were getting in the shower, Callie.
I'm just noting there was no soap, but just go ahead.
I see what you're, okay. After 5 seasons, back to Stranger Things, which does not have these kinds of scenes, I don't think. After 5 seasons of upside-down twists, Hawkins' heroes face their biggest battle yet, sparking debates, conspiracy theories, and trending hashtags as viewers dissected every last frame. And in a first-ever TV moment, the episode's emotional closing was underscored by 2 Prince classics, When Doves Cry and Purple Rain, both of which rarely have ever been licensed before for television. So this was kind of fun to watch. I have to be fully transparent. I bailed out on Stranger Things after the first couple of seasons and didn't go back to it, but it was fun to understand that the show is coming to a close and people clearly not being ready for it to come to a close because they were decoding, as we said in that introduction, every frame to see if there might be some surprise episode, which I think left a lot of people disappointed when there wasn't a surprise final episode.
This is full discussion. This kind of stuff scares me. So
I thought you loved scary movies.
No. I'm just the excerpt person. What I loved about it.
No, this is why Callie got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch 3 episodes of Heated Rivalry.
That is true. I never watched Heated Rivalry until this morning early. I think you can wait till the rest of the day. But anyway, I'm just saying, with Stranger Things, what I appreciated was watching those young actors grow in their roles through my excerpt viewing. And I loved their emphasis on the music. And so to finish up with 2 of the most poignant and interesting songs by Prince, that just adds so much to it. And they've used music effectively through the series.
Incredibly effectively, including the original music that is scored for it, which is also in and of itself just beautiful stuff and very kind of evoking the era of the 80s. I think it's pretty neat, like the Duffer Brothers, who are the creators behind this, they gave their music people a brief. They personally didn't pick the Prince songs. What they did was they gave a brief to their music people. They said, find us an album from the 80s where there is a great song and a great song that starts one of the sides of the record and a great song that ends the same side of the record, because they wanted to have this idea of the beginning and the end of a side of a record and use them at these particular points. So that was the brief, and they landed on, which is a great choice, obviously, these 2 Prince songs, When Doves Cry and Purple Rain, so first track and last track, I think, in side B of that album. What I'm really fascinated about with the end of this is, there was a lot of attention on this, but there was not nearly the attention on this that I think there would have been had this sort of, say, 5 seasons happened over 6 or 7 years. I think this is such an example.
Over 10 years.
Yeah, this is such an example. And there were, mitigating factors. There was the Hollywood strike. There was COVID. These things, I think, slowed down production. But I think a lot of people also look at this as kind of an example of where we've started to lose our way a little bit in the streaming era, where you had such a big hit, and it was so important to Netflix for it to happen, and the Duffer Brothers are given so much sort of budget and control, and I think everybody is in good faith trying to do the best thing, but when you have that much, it took so long to bring this plane down and plane in, that I feel like a lot of people, like you, Jared, you just said you sort of lost it after a couple of seasons. I think a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, Stranger Things, yeah, I kind of remember, but I don't think it has the impact it should have had.
Well, the interesting thing about that, I'm realizing, because look how many people gathered along the way by having 10 years on streaming, also being mindful that this came in the very nascent days of streaming. You had House of Cards and maybe a couple of other. You certainly didn't have the Apple TVs and all of the other Hulus. None of those existed. So it gave people a whole universe that they realized they could go back to and experience. And as we keep talking about on this show, there's such a fervor for nostalgia right now that so many people, especially younger people, want to go back and live in the 1980s, where all of this, of course, most of it was set, without giving too much away. So it allowed people an opportunity to kind of check in as needed.
I want to just emphasize that they built the community such that the finale was also in theaters, and so people gathered in theaters for another communal experience, which I think added to the specialness of it.
Absolutely. I think this would have, if this happened 2.5, 3 years ago, I think this would have been a much bigger deal. I think they sort of I think they bled a little energy over the course of time. Still a big deal, obviously. Like you said, people still struggling to admit it was gone because you had this conformity gate theory that came out where people thought there was going to be a surprise episode dropped. But I will say this. I thought, as somebody who has followed along, big Stranger Things fan along the way, I thought, people give mixed reviews to the end of this. My take was that the final season was certainly not the best season, but I think overall the final episode, I think as much as you can with something that has become this beloved, I think they largely stuck the landing.
Well, it's also hard to break into the realm of MASH and Newhart and have a truly memorable finale.
Yes.
Well, we'll continue on the fandom front now because despite BTS being on a years-long hiatus as the K-pop superstars fulfilled their mandatory national service in South Korea, fan fervor has only ratcheted up, with the final of the 7 members having completed his military service. They've announced an album drop and a major world tour all happening this year. The album drop will happen March. And of course, maybe their timing is very, very clever, or at least worked out this way, because on the heels of K-pop Demon Hunters, people are clamoring for everything related to Korean pop culture. We've talked about Hallyu, the Korean pop culture wave that has just washed across the world, and now BTS gets to come back. For people who don't know, this is this supercharged boy group, now man group, with the costumes, the lighting, and the choreography that has audiences in the hair, that has, from hair, Edgar, that has audiences transfixed.
Well, the only thing I worry about them, because I always thought they were great, is that they're coming back to a changed landscape because of the intense interest in all things Korean pop culture. There is so much now that the level you have to be at to stand out is something else. So they come with a built-in fan base, of course.
Yeah,
but if you are not, if you hit that dance stage and all the steps are something I haven't seen before, because, Pink and Black, they're doing some things, you know what I mean? So you gotta come with it. So I'll be expecting them, and I'm sure they're working very hard to come with it, but it is going to be interesting to see if they can reclaim their space.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to be fair, I think we've got to acknowledge the fact that this big explosion in interest in Korean pop culture, they're a big part of why.
That's right.
That is baseline. I see this, I think, a couple of interesting things. Maybe it's a fair analogy, maybe it's not, but I think about Elvis superfans, right? And Elvis's career, especially for people who really love Elvis, they talk about pre-army Elvis and post-army Elvis.
Interesting.
A lot of them were like, you talk to an Elvis fan, they'll be like, I love Elvis. I love the pre-army Elvis. They'll qualify pre-army Elvis. And then post-army Elvis, he kind of took his career in another direction and sort of that. So that's kind of interesting analogy here, because the reason they've been on a break is because they had military service to do. So that's just one thing. The other is, I think about, they say this, the numbers sort of tend to bear out in football, for example, that certain positions like wide receiver, there tends to be this demarcation point right around age 30, where, even the greatest wide receivers, some still have productive years post 30, but you often start to see decline. And I'm thinking about boy bands, whether we're talking about the Beatles or New Kids on the Block or One Direction. And these guys are right also at that turning point. It's like boy bands tend to have a lot of success, and then when they sort of start to get into that late 20s and hitting 30, it often goes off the rails, or there's diminishing returns. So it will be interesting to see what these men come up with, and whether they can sort of go through a new path, and I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, speaking
of
that, so here's where we left off with them in 2022 with their song "Run," which, by the way, claimed the #1 spot on the Billboard World Digital Song Sales chart this week after they announced their comeback. This is what we heard from before.
Let's get
So that almost sounds to be a little, to your point, Kelly, it almost sounds a little quaint in everything that's come since then, especially if you think of K-pop Demon Hunters. But somebody who is affiliated with the group says that because there are 7 men
There's 7 of them
who are involved, and they've gone into different musical directions and interests, from Korean ballads to hip-hop to rap to blues to some degree. So, of course, they have a producer who's going to corral all this, but it'll be interesting to see what that cultural, what the artistic output is at this point.
I don't think they can repeat. I don't think they can even be vintage. I think they have to be path breakers again. And if there is frustration on their part, they set the stage for everybody else. So they got to come, with something else that no one's seen. And I think they could make it if
I think they
because
can too. I think
know.
it's really hard to get.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
band of 3 people is hard to hold
Yeah,
together
that's
for
true.
years. The idea
Yeah.
of 7 of them and getting older and all of that. I mean, I think it's fascinating. It's fascinating character study.
Well, we're going to take a little break. We'll give people time to get their heated rivalry queued up for their viewing right after the show. But coming up on this show, the British Museum is going on the hunt, hiring a specialist to track down stolen antiquities missing from its own collection. We'll talk about why museums are turning to investigators and what it takes to recover history once it disappears. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Arun Roth. Today on GBH's All Things Considered, it's been a rough flu season in Massachusetts, but new data suggests the situation could be improving. And it's been a rough week in the news. Let us help you reset for the weekend with this week's Joy Beat, a youth mentoring program that provides connection amid growing concerns about boys' loneliness. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you
And Cambridge School of Culinary Arts in Porter Square, offering private cooking events for your next team building activity, family reunion, birthday party, or night out. You can learn more at cambridgeculinary.com. And Fixed Dental, offering permanent teeth-on implants customized in their laboratory, enabling their doctors and technicians to oversee every aspect of the smile design. Learn more about all the treatments offered at Fixed at fixeddental.com. And the Massachusetts Teachers Association, working together to ensure that all students have the resources they need to succeed. The MTA, a diverse union of education workers committed to the public schools and colleges our communities deserve.
National news floods your inbox. We focus on what impacts your town. Trusted local news. GBH 89.7, gbhnews.org, and streaming on the GBH app.
Welcome back to The Culture Show. I'm Jared Bowen, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. If you're just tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review, which includes a job search for a real-life Indiana Jones.
This is the second time I've had to reclaim my property from you.
That belongs in a museum.
So do you.
Well, now Indiana Jones will be in a museum as an employee. The British Museum is recruiting a modern-day treasure hunter to track down stolen artifacts, turning a real security scandal into a recovery mission for a qualified globetrotter. This is fascinating and super fun if it wasn't born out of something that was so terrible, which was hundreds of artifacts being disappeared or outright stolen from the British Museum, as they've had to disclose over the last couple of years, something that forced the resignation of its museum director, something that forced the firing of a curator who was charged with being responsible for this theft. Some of these things aren't so sexy. They're not turning up in caves and far-flung locales. Instead, they're turning up on eBay. But this is the job of this person to track this stuff down.
Well, you have to hire somebody if you're going to do the Indiana Jones thing with all of that background, that academic background he brought to it,
and the great suits and the hat.
Well,
and
no,
the
I didn't mean all that. But I mean the intellectual base that he came with to recognize what was valuable or not, and where you might look based on what he knew about those kinds of things. And so when I think about somebody, I don't necessarily think Indiana Jones. I think James Corden, the insurance inspector in Ocean's 8.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I mean?
That's a great
He comes to the table with, you know, the focus of the insurance company trying to get it back. But the way that he comported himself in trying to get the answers out of Sandra Bullock and her gang of thieves was really quite interesting. This was a guy who was assigned to high impact thefts like that. So, you know, he knew where to look too. And so it's going to take somebody with that combination of skills to be able to do that.
Yeah,
How many people are there like that? I mean, I can't imagine.
Probably not that many. They say the job's going to be communicating with art houses, dealers, collectors, auctioneers, doing a lot of archival research. So to your point, like that is the job. I think this is also like one way to look at this is an incredible PR job by the British Museum, who have, as you point out, Jared, right? They had this scandal. You could look at that and say, you guys, like, what were you doing? You let all of this stuff go missing from your museum. So to sort of turn that around and say, we'd like to find a treasure hunter to get this back. I'm like, well done, you guys. But also, they're really trying to get it back, which I think is interesting. They are clearly very serious about this, which is interesting.
Well, the part I do find interesting is even though you maybe aren't looking in caves and under boulders for things, you are looking on eBay, and you have to know your material enough to know that when you're scrolling through these auctions, I keep referring to eBay because actually that's where a lot of this turns up. One, I think, necklace or some jeweled piece showed up on eBay that was, of course, worth thousands and thousands, if not more, dollars, because it was a piece of antiquity. It was selling for $48.
Yeah, it was Roman jewels.
That's right, yeah. So you have to know your material to be able to scan through and with your curator eye quickly identify that, wait a minute, this is one of the looted pieces or stolen pieces, and be able to buy it back for $48 and get it back to the British Museum.
Or use my cousin's trick. I told you about that. She says, "Have
oh, she's going to be angry with you, but,
you can't
feel free to share it."
All right, I'll share it out loud. Most people misspell, and so she's gotten great stuff because people don't know how to spell the real thing. So you got the person who knows how to spell the real thing and knows how the real thing would probably be misspelled and probably find it.
So if you're looking for, so she's looking for a discount on a Warhol, she spells it W-O-R-H-O-L, and turns out
other people wouldn't, and she'd be able to.
That's so good. So one thing that I found really interesting is something maybe you both knew this existed, but I didn't realize there's a database out there, international database called the Art Loss Register with 700,000 stolen items on it. I think that's really cool. For those of us who like sometimes waste our time, looking at Zillow and just kind of imagining that I am going to start going there and just looking at these stolen items and then surfing eBay and see if you can find them.
Well, and a good point to remind people that if you treasure hunt and look for the stolen Gardner paintings, you'll get your own treasure of $10 million if you find those paintings.
I think somebody should do a documentary on this person. To see,
the treasure hunter. I thought you meant the Gardner. That's been done. Well, speaking of museums and their departments of lost and found, one can find a sense of trust and community in these institutions. Recent research shows that a majority of Americans see museums as nonpartisan and as establishments that they can trust. I think we're all just moved this week in our editorial meeting when we were talking about this, because in this moment where trust and truth is in such great question and is so fallible these days, to see that research is showing that people, by and large, actually in huge numbers, still have faith in museums and what they're presenting and what they're doing is extraordinary. Recently, I had the director of the ICA, the brand new director of the ICA, Nora Burnett Abrams, on the show, and I asked her about what it means to be a contemporary art museum. Here's her answer, and I think this speaks to why people have trust in museums right now.
We have a really special opportunity, a platform to bring ideas to the fore, help us look at an issue or a challenge or even just a question from multiple perspectives and bring multiple voices to bear on it. And through the presentation of work that is kind of situated very much at the center of those conversations, who knows how we might be able to expand someone's view or vision or perspective on a particular topic. It might seem wildly ambitious to think about it that way, but to me it's deeply purposeful.
And it's clearly resonating.
Mm-hmm. I think that's, it's one of the few places one hopes you can go and see all of the perspectives, however many they are. And how many times have you been in an exhibit and said, I didn't know that?
Yeah.
I mean, because you didn't know it existed, or you didn't know how it interacted or overlaid with what you thought you knew. I can't say enough about that. My family and I just came back from Nevis in the Caribbean, and they have a tour called Coffee with Hamilton, which because Alexander Hamilton came from. And so part of the tour was just showing you all the places he went. But in the museum itself were all this stuff where we said in our 4-hour tour, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So it's wonderful to have this acknowledged and to know that people already found that out for themselves, and it's accessible.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I think some of the numbers from some of the Pew research and other research that's out there, 92% of adults view museums as nonpartisan sources of education. That's incredible. This one's very interesting. 96% of Americans say they would support lawmakers who fund museums. So that's an interesting one to keep in mind. I mean, that's a 96%. That's a huge number. And basically, when you crunch the numbers, you know, Pew says these findings place museums as one of the most trusted institutions in American life, just behind friends and family. And I think, I think first of all, that's encouraging because, as you were saying at the top, Jared, obviously we talk about truth and all of that and where we're at today. Sometimes I find myself wondering if people are even interested in there being a truth. You know what I mean? And so this tells me, yes, we still do. We still want there to be that. And I think that's very encouraging. The other thing I think about is that something in this. Obviously, museums, you often pay an entry charge or whatever, but they're not trying to sell you anything. You know what I mean? They are in the museum shop. They're doing their thing to keep their. But at its core, so much of the world we're in is sort of transactional, or somebody is trying to sell you something. In this, they're not.
Well, also, at least in this moment, and hopefully this isn't forever, but we have objects which are undeniably the truth.
Right.
If you see a samurai warrior outfit, and then you move to the next gallery and you see depictions of ancient Romans who would have been in the marketplace, and then you can see a piece by a painting, and in the next gallery by Jacob Lawrence depicting his history as a black man in this country, that have been passed down generation after generation. At least we're still in a moment where those can't be denied. And so you can enter these sanctuaries where the truth is very much physically before you.
And I just a shout out to museums who are doing these incredible interactive and immersive experiences, which take, for example, let's say, pieces from Jacob Lawrence and put that in a larger context of the world and the time, and ask you as a person consuming in the moment about these other factors that may have shaped his worldview. And so there is that going on in ways that are really interesting now. So it becomes a different level of entertainment as well as an educational experience.
And as you point out, the sort of physical nature, not just of artifacts to say like this did happen, but also just simple beauty, right? Like it's the, you can pull out your phone or whatever and see, a million images of a tree, but if you walk out into nature and see a tree, it's different. And so I think we have so much access to so many sort of beautiful images, but to stand in a museum where there's an oil painting and you see the painting, it looks different, it feels different. And I think it is also encouraging that people still seem to be connecting with that.
Thankfully. Well, keeping inventory at public libraries may be more challenging. Starting this month, Baker & Taylor, the nation's largest book supplier to public libraries, is closing the chapter on its business, sending libraries scrambling for ways to stock new releases as they face a slower arrival of new books. I don't think that I certainly didn't realize the whole business model behind how libraries are stocked. Of course, we're coming to you from a library right now, and I know that Massachusetts is one of the places that is affected by the closure of this company that is more than 200 years old, or about 200 years old. I think it was founded it's almost there. It was founded in Hartford, Connecticut in 1828 as a company that would supply, it would basically be the wholesaler. So it acquires the books, and in this case, it does everything for the library. They put them in the plastic sheaths, they put the barcodes on them these days, and the labels so that when they arrive at the library, so that people can have access to the newest material or the bestsellers immediately. It's already done for all the librarians. And suddenly this company, which apparently was bought by a private investment group a few years ago, is no longer. And so there are a few competitors, and Amazon is getting into the business, but all libraries are saying this is going to be very detrimental to them.
And it will be. 5,000 libraries they were supplying. I had no idea was the distribute. I actually thought it just came from the publishers.
I honestly never really thought about it. Yeah, I never thought about how it works, right?
But it's going to take a minute to scale up. The first moment is to go to the main competitor, and they already said they're willing to take on the task, but they need to hire people and get a system going, because that's a huge systematic situation, and they're not prepared for it now. So we'll see what happens. But what it means on the ground is that if your favorite book you've been waiting for the last 4 months, that normally would be at the library immediately, will not be. and you just have to wait for it. So this is another reason for us to pay attention and support libraries and make sure that they can get the materials.
Yeah, that 5,000 number analysts sort of suggest that's probably about half the market share. So it's like that's a lot. And the other thing I found interesting on this, they do the library thing, but other things as well. And apparently in the comic and graphic novel world, this is a hit too. That there are people who said that Baker and Taylor had done genuine targeted outreach to comic book stores in the early to mid 2000s, especially smaller comic book stores, and basically worked with them to make sure that the explosion of stuff that was happening in that field, including out of places like Japan and things like that, were available. And so they said a lot of these stores in cities that were like smaller and independent would get access to stuff beyond the run-of-the-mill stuff because of this company. So there's just another little tick in this story.
And if you're thinking that ebooks are an alternative, they are, but this isn't a good alternative because the licensing fees for ebooks are pretty expensive, and so it actually is better for libraries to have the print books. So if they have to move to the ebook market, even in the short term, it's going to come at a pretty great expense.
Wow.
Well, coming up, Bourbon Alert. Jim Beam is taking Dry January seriously, putting America's signature whiskey on ice. Amid a crowded market and slowing demand, it's halting production at its Kentucky distillery for the year. We'll have that and more next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
President Trump is making noise about the U.S. acquiring Greenland. European leaders are asking themselves what this means for NATO and how they should respond to a potential threat from their most powerful ally.
If Europe is not able to stop the U.S., then who is? And what kind of signal does this send to other parts of the world?
Hear that story next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Vivo Performing Arts, formerly Celebrity Series, presenting Alfredo Rodriguez and Pedrito Martinez for an evening pulsing with the spirit of Cuban musical traditions. January 24th at Berkeley Performance Center. VivoPerformingArts.org. And Atlantic Design Center by Eldridge Lumber and Hardware, committed to helping you achieve your vision for a new kitchen or bathroom and guiding you from design to completion with showrooms in York and Portland, Maine. AtlanticDesignCTR.com. And St. Andrew's School in Barrington, Rhode Island, a middle and high school with day and boarding options, plus after-school and weekend programs. Open house January 14th, standrews-ri.org.
Securely and confidentially contact GBH News by messaging us on the Signal app. Visit gbhnews.org/investigations for more information. gbhnews.org/investigations.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show, live on 89.7 and coming to you from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. We're also streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and Edgar B. Herwick III. We're going over the latest headlines on our Arts and Culture Week in Review, which includes Jim Beam. For more than 2 centuries, it has been a cornerstone of Kentucky bourbon production. Now, the whiskey giant is shutting down operations at its flagship distillery amid a change in consumer habits and bourbon stockpiles outpacing sales. So not stopping for good, but stopping for the entire year. This is hugely significant because I think many of us remember the bourbon boom starting in the early 2000s, and that went forever. And bourbon became such a highly sought after, prized bottles and oaked barrels. Think of Jefferson's sending bourbon around in a ship so that it could have the sea air, and then they could turn around and sell it for $90 a bottle.
Yeah.
Well, tastes and times have shifted, and so they're shutting down the production of a number of their products, like Jim Beam, like Basil Hayden, like Knob Creek, and this is quite the signifier.
It is, and it's a combination of things, apparently. First of all, Gen Zers and others are drinking less alcohol in general, not just Dry January, but in general.
The millennials ruined cereal, and now the Gen Zers are ruining alcohol.
Well, that is true, except the other thing that's very interesting, though, Jim Beam made most of its sales on its lower-end product, okay? So Gen Zers are buying luxury liquor. So higher priced products or no alcohol seems to be where they are. So that means that a lot of the specialty bourbons are doing quite well. I'll point to Uncle Nearest, which is a black-owned brand in a little financial caca at the moment, but doing so well that last December partnered with Ginny's Ice Cream for something called Boozy Ice Cream. So their bourbon was in the ice cream. It's a luxury market, but they lost, because of their own financial stuff, a great amount of income last go around, and it wasn't helped by what's happening in the larger marketplace. So luxury ones seem to be doing okay, but this is a huge blow in general. You know, I'm from the South. We like the brown liquor in the South.
Yeah.
So this is a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, there is a little bit where there's a boom, there's a bust. And
Yeah.
I think this is kind of a natural outgrowth of that. All the stuff you're talking about. I gotta say, for me with whiskey, so a couple years ago I was in Scotland on the Isle of Islay, which is where a lot of the whiskey is made, and down in Campbelltown on the Mull of Kintyre where Springbank is. And it was eye-opening to me, not just to see the whiskey being made and stuff. There were a couple things that I found very fascinating. One, I didn't realize how interdependent, for example, all of these whiskey companies in Scotland, right, are using barrels that come from America after they've been used on bourbon, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're all sort of related to each other. So that was, like, the connectivity of that entire world was very interesting to me. But the other one is the fact that in that boom, there was also this wing of it where people started kind of investing in whiskey. Like, there was a lot of people would tell you about this fact that, like, whiskey, like, investing in whiskey had outperformed the S&P over the last couple of decades. And so you had people, you know, who are like, oh, I can make money in whiskey, kind of flooding in that. So then you have a lot of new companies starting up, sort of trying to figure out. I think the market just got saturated, and that's what we have here. Right? There's an estimated 16.1 million barrels of whiskey right now aging just in Kentucky. There's just too much whiskey right now.
Well,
and tariffs.
And this is
Well,
tariffs
and
is
then
a big factor here, because just as they were trying to get it off the ground in other markets like India, Brazil, and other places, China, tariffs has certainly dented that. I've traveled the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. I've been to distilleries in Ireland, all which are on pause right now, and you realize how many jobs are associated with these, especially in the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. You realize this is the industry. It's like the movies out in LA. This is the industry. We see the same impact. So I think we have to be so mindful of those people in this moment too. Well, we're not done with the liquor talk. Let's make it a double, actually, because Heavy is the head that wears the crown royal. Ontario's spirited premier Doug Ford is tightening the drawstring on Canada's iconic whiskey, threatening to pull the purple-bagged booze from stores after its British owner decided to close its Ontario plant and move production to the U.S., which actually might help some of what I was just talking about. But this is a pretty radical move by Premier Doug Ford to take it out of stores because he doesn't like what they're doing, because this same thing that I was just saying about here in the United States, Canadians are saying is that this is a big industry and this is going to hurt people if he's not even allowing them to buy it.
Well, first of all, I didn't know it was Canadian. So,
Really?
all the ads and stuff, I just assumed it was American, so that's
it
on
says
me.
Canadian whiskey on the bottle.
I didn't read that part. I just read the purple bag is what I always got.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean,
yes.
the look of that is...
Yes, so that's
says
what
the woman in purple to me.
That's true. And so it's made from Canadian grains and water from Lake Winnipeg. I mean, that's how Canadian it is. And of course, I've gotten more interested in it because cute old Anthony Ramos from Hamilton is the guy in the commercial for Crown Royal.
Yeah.
So I really thought it was American. I don't think there's anywhere on there that says it's Canadian, is there?
I think it might. I think it might, but regardless.
But that's a big move to go from there to Alabama, obviously for cost reasons.
Absolutely, but it's also like this is one of those. It's just like in 2025, all of these big multinational corporations, and the food and drink industry is very much that, right? So it's on the one hand, like I sort of get this, and as you say, it's so tied up in the identity of Canada and it's Canadian whiskey and all of that stuff. But also it's like this company owns that company and they're over here and they're overseas and they're moving this and they're trying to find savings, and I sort of get it when you get that big, but we're in a time period where in the drinking, it's even like the Jim Beam stuff, right? I don't think that's an American company that ultimately owns it. I think they're an overseas company. Budweiser, I think, is owned by an overseas company. So these products, whether it be Crown Royal in Canada or Budweiser in America, Budweiser's whole thing is America, right? That's their whole marketing campaign, and yet it's not really owned by an American company. It's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be able to buy it here, whether it's American or Canadian. We'll get to the bottom. I think it says it on the
Get a
bottle,
bunch,
too.
put them in your car, drive up to
buy
Canada.
it. If
sell
Anthony
'em out of
is
the back
coming to
of
my
your
house
trunk.
with a bottle, I'm definitely buying
Well,
it.
it's called Crown Royal because it was to honor a royal visit for the Queen. What was the Queen Mother? The first Queen Elizabeth, whatever.
Yeah.
Yes,
Anyway,
we
it was a
got
royal
it.
visit to Canada, so that's why it's Crown Royal.
And purple.
Well, all the buckling of the booze business is. Springfield's most pumped-up pitchman is hanging up his cape in the latest episode of The Simpsons. Duffman, the popular Duff beer spokesman, has been retired. I think we should hear a little bit from him.
Hey, Duff lovers! Does anyone in this bar love Duff?
Hey, it's Duffman.
Newsweek said you died of liver failure.
Duffman can never die. Only the actors who play him. Oh yeah!
Hank Azaria, who voices him, is very happy because he doesn't have to do that very straining voice anymore. Truly, he said that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not a huge Simpsons person, but I know this character because he's been there forever.
Duffman.
And I'm always amazed at the bravery, and I do think it's bravery when you kill off characters.
Well, he's not dead. He's just now Barry Duffman. He's no longer Duffman. He's just a guy now named Barry Duffman.
Oh, but that's a big change. So,
Well,
I
would say this. The Simpsons has, by most counts, at least 119 recurring characters. So
Okay.
I think, there's form for this. They've killed off Maude Flanders.
That's almost as many
They've
as
killed
Stranger
off
Things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mrs. Crabapple, and of course one of my favorite Simpsons episodes of all time, Frank Grimes, this guy who hates Homer Simpson, but Homer Simpson is like, "You're my best friend, Frank Grimes." And then Frank Grimes dies, and Homer gives the eulogy. So even in death, he can't escape Homer Simpson. It's kind of terrifying and really funny. But anyway, yeah. Also, The Simpsons renewed for another 4 seasons.
Yes.
It is. I mean, they just keep. How do they keep going?
I saw an
guess
interview
100
with Matt Groening,
Yeah.
and the creator of it, and he's like, I don't know why. We're glad people like us, but it's very bizarre because we're very bizarre. So
Well,
anyway,
the way things are going, they're going to skip past 60 minutes, I think. Because
Yeah.
that's the most
Well,
longest
yeah.
running
Yeah.
show, I think, on
Yeah.
television.
Yeah.
Well, we're launching a new segment instead of our lightning round this week that we'll be doing for you going forward. And it's time for our weekend preview with our suggestions of the arts and culture events we recommend. These are things that are coming up that people can participate in. Callie, what's yours?
well, against my better judgment, because Netflix has not said it's going to drop the entire series, so we're waiting.
Okay.
But next week on the 16th, this new rom-com, I love rom-coms, called Can This Love Be Translated? It really speaks to a couple things we've been talking about this show. It's another K-pop drama that decodes the language of love. It's about an unexpected blossoming relationship between a multilingual translator and a global celebrity.
Oh, I'm
and
in.
it's pretty
That sounds fun.
interesting, yes. So the global translator has to translate between the global celebrity and this other person, and in the meantime, he realizes he has feelings for the global celebrity,
Little
whom
Cyrano de Bergerac
met
there.
before she became a global celebrity. So I think it'll be very cute, but I need all 10 of them to drop at the same time.
If they don't, will you wait the 10 weeks to
Yes,
start
I will.
watching it? You will.
Yes,
I do
because
the
I can't
same
stand
thing.
that.
Really?
Yeah,
I do the
I
same
can't
thing.
stand it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I can't stand it. Same thing.
Or I'll time it out like Matlock. I love this new series with Kathy Bates.
Yes.
So I'll time it out knowing it's going to end in April or May. I'll start watching
So
it
you'll
in
wait,
March.
yeah. So
Yes,
that
because I
you
haven't
can kinda
watched this
catch up
season
and
for
then-
that reason.
It's same here.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. You
Yeah.
guys have your whole schedule and system down. Jeez. I'm just like, what's on? Okay, I'll watch it. Oh, shoot.
You're
there's only
talking
one
to Callie,
episode.
who set her alarm to wake up and watch Heated Rivalry at 4 o'clock this morning. She has a whole grid.
That's just, I mean, the thought of watching that at 4 o'clock in the morning. Did you watch episode 1 at 4 o'clock in the
Well,
morning?
it wasn't that early, but yeah, it was early.
'Cause that is a steamy stuff.
That's how I
First 20
noticed there was
minutes of
no
that is
soap
just like,
in the
woo.
shower.
It's
So
better
I
than
was sharp.
better than caffeine to get you going.
Okay.
Edgar, what's yours?
So mine is probably less in the art space, more I would say in the cultural space, but the NFL playoffs begin this weekend. And for folks locally here, the Patriots are really darn
Shockingly.
good, shockingly good. football fan. But my favorite team is not here. I wasn't raised around here, so I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. So oftentimes, if I want to watch an Eagles game, I've got to go out to a local bar somewhere that's playing all the games and stuff. And I'll tell you, it's always a great experience. You meet other people who are maybe from where you are that are living here. You see people gathered from other cities who are out watching their teams. You get to meet friends, and you see Patriots fans coming out in mass to watch games. And I think it's been a while since that kind of excitement's been around for the playoffs here. So my suggestion is, I would argue, if you're a fan of any team, the playoffs in general, or the Patriots, think about going out and hanging out somewhere this weekend and watch some football, because it's a fun time.
I just saw a story on WBZ this morning about a movie theater in Millbury where you can go and watch it on the big screen.
Oh, that's smart. That's great.
So mine is a play that's playing right now, so you can do it this weekend, and it's actually playing through January 11th, I believe, and it's called Is This a Room? And it's presented by Apollinaire Theatre at Chelsea Theatre Works. And if you're familiar with the Reality Winner, who was somebody who was convicted for espionage because when she was working for intelligence, she saw a document come through that showed that there indeed was interference by the Russians in our election system. She sent it off to a media organization, and then she was arrested. Well, this show, again happening at Chelsea Theatre Works, presents what happened when the FBI descended on her home. There's no playwright involved here. They just took the transcript of the events with 3 FBI agents and Reality Winner, so it plays out just as it happened. Interesting bit of trivia, since we're here at the Boston Public Library. Parker Jennings plays Reality Winner in this play, and she saw Reality Winner talking here at the Boston Public Library when she had her book. And you can hear all of this, by the way. They were on the Culture Show, so go back and listen to our podcast for that. And Nora Burnett Abrams, the new director of the ICA. You can go backtrack on all of this. She went up to her and explained that she was going to be playing her, and they ended up having a continued conversation back and forth. Wow. So she has an even more informed perspective on her role. But speaking of roles, it's pretty fascinating to watch how she conducts herself, Reality Winner does, knowing that the truth is bearing down on her, and how she tries to defend herself in her home in that moment, and what the FBI employs in their role to elicit this confession from her or acknowledgement from her, and the sociological skills that they employ to make this happen. It's very, very fascinating.
How long is it running?
This is through January 11th. Or January 18th. It was just extended. We have breaking news for you. It was just extended through January 18th, which is fabulous. Well, speaking of shows, Edgar, you have some pretty big news this week.
Yeah,
Tell us about it.
Well, starting in February, during the 1 o'clock hour, in the lead up to this wonderful show, we're going to be launching a brand new show, The Curiosity Desk, and I'll be the host. So it's the latest iteration of our
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Out of the gate, we won't be here at the library, but the hope is, in short order, we'll be down here at the library at least sometime as well. So hopefully looking forward to doing shows here at the library just like this.
And we should point out that Jim and Marjorie, so tired.
Yeah.
So tired. They want to do other things, have a little bit more time in their life. So their show is continuing for 2 hours, and then you'll have the 1 to 2 hour that they used to occupy.
That's right. They, it was their idea to sort of come down to 2 hours, which was how they launched here at GBH as a 2-hour show. So they wanted to come back down to 2 hours to create a little bit more space in their own lives, and also create space for GBH to do some new things. And this is what we're going to try. So it's very exciting. It's humbling. I'm really excited to get started, and I hope folks will listen and come down and see us at the library once we start here.
So again, that starts February 2nd.
February 2nd.
The Curiosity Desk on the radio. Well, thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. You can tune in Monday for artist Damien Hoare de Galvin, one of the ICA Foster Prize recipients. So also go to the ICA to check out his work this weekend in advance of his visit on Monday. And Summer L. Williams, co-founder of Company One Theater, joins us to talk about their latest production, The Great Privation. Thanks to Henry Santoro for today's Culture Cast, today's engineer Bill Piattatelli, the BPL technical and logistics crew, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Sandra Lopez-Burke, Juan Jose Cadena, Chris Hanks, Pat Lally, Olivia Corshio, and thanks to the Newsfeed Cafe. Thanks to everyone who came down here to be with us today. We love seeing you. Thank you so much. I'm Jared Bowen. Grab a stick and a puck, get thee to a heated rivalry watch party, and have an art-filled weekend.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Where's Mary? Where is she? Where is she? She's just about to close up the library.